Hello, 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 my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Welcome. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my basement. But I've got books, kind of flowers. I've got flower-scented candle. I think that counts. Hope you have a good time here anyway. So we will be continuing to read The Imperial Uncle. This is our third session. We'll be going over chapters 4 and 5. Hello, Chi-Chi Kiki. This is a very chill stream. I will be talking to my chat. I will be talking to the book. I will be having side thoughts and conversations. If this isn't your flavor, I mean, maybe stay and see if it is. Hopefully, if you're on the third session, maybe you've decided it might be, or you're just interested in the book. That could also be it. But maybe stay and see. If not, that's totally cool. I do not own any of the book rights, anything about this, other than the physical copy in front of me and my time. Hello, Momars Rover. How you been? Hope you're doing well, both of you. But yeah, please don't come after me. Actually, I don't think it'll be more of a problem because this isn't just straight up a reading stream. We're also just chilling. Hey, you made it back, Peacock Pages. Welcome. But I don't know if anyone's heard that Seven Seas is actually picking up the licensing for Little Mushroom and Golden Terrace, both of the books that I've already finished. So I don't think it'll be an issue, but hopefully nothing comes of it other than good books that are now readily available on the market. I mean, it's not going to be until next year, but still. Right? So excited about that. You'll have no money in 2026. I'm not going to have any money. Well, I still don't have any money, especially after I get that tattoo done, which my artist was sick yesterday. Or no, Friday. When was I supposed to get it? Oh my goodness, the days are so long. Yesterday, my artist ended up texting me that they had to go home sick. But I will be able to get it early next month. So it's okay. Life happens. But no, I've got like a whole list because Seven Seas decided to drop like 12 books over a span of like 6 months this coming summer. And I'm like, and all the special editions are starting with Modao Zushi with special editions. I'm like, ha ha ha, money fly away. Oh boy. No, but it'll be a good time. Yeah. Oh yeah, I still have this in. All right, hang on, sorry. I was a little scrambled getting here, but it's okay. Just doing the standard checks. Got to make sure that the phone is turned off. Well, muted, not off necessarily, but just quiet. Well, it was not, but it is now. Okay, why are you beeping at me? Whatever. But yeah, anything new? Anybody want to say while I take a quick bite of popcorn? It's girl dinner tonight. I just need to eat a little bit and then we can get started. But yeah, anybody got some cool summer plans? I also love girl dinner Peacock Pages. You got a copy of The Legend of the White Snake? You're gonna have to tell me if that's good because I've been eyeing it. It looks so pretty. And I like the original Legend of the White Snake. Like the ancient Chinese legend. So Oh, you've already read it, Peacock Pages? Sorry. Talking with my mouth full, sorry. It's really nice. I picked up the new exorcism book, or exorcist book, that was released last month. I haven't had the chance to read it, but I'm excited to read that one. I'm trying to think what else is on my list right now. So you were able to get a hands on a special copy where ST did an alternate cover along with the original, which is stunning. That sounds really cool. I will have to look up what that looks like after the stream, because that sounds amazing. Rainbow Crate. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Otherwise, it might be a long Google search. Okay. All right. That'll be enough for a little bit. But yeah. Cool. All right. Enough delaying. So right before this, we had our pro tag get stabbed, and Liu Tongyi's smile deepened. He referred back to the divine white jade sword, so his memory of Huai's mother's party. So where he first met Liu Tongyi in the garden as he was reading the knockoff version of the divine white jade sword. And then he left, and Yun Yu basically admits he was the one who arranged the assassination attempt. So on Liu Tongyi, so that Huai could step in and be like the hero. Supposedly, that's kind of what it's implying. Because the last few lines are, the suspicion caught in my mind was at last I'll start one a little bit before. With no one around, Yun Yu gently tugged on my sleeve. He laughed softly and just as softly said, "Was your highness pleased with my gift?" The suspicion caught in my mind was at last substantiated. I might have known. I could only sigh. In a voice even lower than his, I asked, "Supervisor Yoon, is it your idea of a gift to get me stabbed?" Okay, and on that note, we get to chapter 4. The moment was unsuitable, so I said only this and left it there. Okay, apparently we're not going to get into it. Though from Yoon Yu's manner, it was evident he felt no remorse over getting me stabbed. What a dick. I deliberately announced before the crowd of people in the hall, "I have been slightly injured through no doing of my own. Earlier, His Majesty graced me with his presence, and I was subject to an imperial scolding. Therefore, I'm afraid I am unable to honor Supervisor Yoon's invitation." "I see," said Yoon Yu. "I regret it profoundly. Oh yes, my father meant to come ask after your highness's health as well, but was worried your highness would find it inconvenient today, so sent me on ahead. Will tomorrow or the day after do?" "Any time will do," I said. "This trifling little injury doesn't merit Grand Tutor Yoon's attention." "How can an injury to your highness be insignificant?" Yoon Yu said with unassailable courtesy. "Lord Wang and some other nobles are sure to want to come ask after your highness's health as well. I expect they will not accompany my father. For the next few days, your highness will have no shortage of visitors. Please remember to rest and not overtax your energy on this account." I inclined my head slightly. Chizzy's mention earlier today of places of ill repute had not left my mind. Perhaps he had only meant by it what was clear on the surface, but I could not help. Sorry, just noticed that I'm reading into my chin. I could not help but try to interpret it further. Perhaps he was already aware that I was plotting with Yun Tang and Wang Qin. I didn't want complications to arise before I drown out all the forces of the Yun and Wang clans. So my plan had simply been to change the location of the meeting from Yunhua Pavilion to Huai Manor. Really, buddy? That does not seem like a smart idea. But Yu had refused and made it plain that his father would not come to Huai Manor with Wang Qin. The Yun and Wang families were just as cautious as myself, only our caution was concerned with different things. Okay. I mean, I'm kind of glad it didn't work out because it was a terrible idea in the first case. Yun Tang and Wang Qin must still have their suspicions about me. They felt safer meeting at Yuhua Pavilion, a location they had arranged, than at Huai Manor. I mean, you are technically thinking about turning traitor on them, so the suspicions are warranted. I'll give you that. Here was another instance of Yun Tang and Wang Qin treating me like an idiot. Everything had to be done in places they held tight in their grasp. They did not even dare to come to Huai Manor to plot. Supposing I actually wished to revolt, wouldn't I have cause to doubt their good faith? Yunyu looked away and, shaking his head, said, "What a pity. When we met, I had meant to—" Halfway through, he cut himself off and lifted his sleeves to bid farewell. I said, smiling, "Cutting yourself off like that and leaving, Supervisor Yun, is really getting your hooks into my mind. Have you some rare and exquisite individual at the ready?" "Your Highness, how can you say such a thing with Chu Shun standing next to you?" Yunyu said seriously. Chu Shun had ought to know that Yunyu was only teasing. He stood next to me, smiling. I took Chun Shu by the hand. Ami is not the jealous short. Let me try that whole sentence over because I messed that up. I took Chu Shun by the hand. Ami is not the jealous short. Yun Yu raised his eyebrows. Your Highness leaves me paralyzed with envy. I comprehend. I am in danger of overstaying my welcome if I do not leave now. I bid you farewell. Be well, Supervisor Yun, I said. After what you've said, my interest in this outing can hardly be contained. As long as I am able to rouse myself, I will make it. I had no further need to quibble overmuch on the issues with Yun Tang and Wang Qin, but Yun Yu's frame of mind was always cautious and unpredictable. Perhaps he was deliberately testing me. One way or another, I would go along with this for the moment, pending later circumstances. Yun Yu said only one thing more. As your Highness pleases. Then he turned and left. I watched his figure recede into the dimness of the corridor and lifted a hand to rub my forehead. The injury to my arm was secondary. It was handling these back and forth that was truly draining my energy today. Heard. That night, I shared a bed with Chu Shun. As I sat up in bed, I felt quite emotional. After many years of sleeping in this bed, this was the first time I had someone to share it with. What a pity that I'd had to purchase his company. I did not know whether I would ever live to see the day when someone truly chose to sleep beside me, to share my pillow and my dreams. Ouch. In the lamplight, for a dizzy moment, looking at Chu Shun from behind in his sleeping robe, I took him for Liu Tongyi and let my mind wander. When Chu Shun turned around, came to the bed, and lifted the covers, I came to myself with a start. I kind of feel a little bad for Chu Shun. Like, oof. I just feel bad this chapter. How deplorable that whenever I thought of Liu Tongyi, I became as eager as in my libidinous teens and early 20s. I tried to think of something unrelated. Perhaps even now Liu Tongyi was thinking of how to root me out along with all my power, treacherous prince that I was. If he, like Chu Xun, could spend a day by my side, whether he was sincere or not, even if it meant my instant death, I would be willing. Chu Xun said softly in my ear, "Your Highness, should I put out the candle?" I rose and extinguished it myself, then lay down under the covers. I quietly asked Chu Xun, "Are you comfortable sleeping here, away from your own bed?" Chu Xun said softly, "Your Highness, I can sleep anywhere. I don't mind." I squeezed his hand under the covers. "You don't have to be so formal in bed. Call me Chengjun." Chu Xun was silent a moment, then quietly responded, I wouldn't dare." I was flooded with conflicting emotions. He was telling the truth. I didn't ask anything else of him, only said, "Let's go to sleep." Chun Shun made a noise of assent. He had also been telling the truth about being able to sleep anywhere. After 2 marks, his breathing evened out as though he were sound asleep. He didn't move much in his sleep, nor did he hog the bed. There was stillness beside me. Chu Xun was the son of a former official. His father had been corrupt and responsible for a number of unjust deaths. One day, the truth was at last exposed, and he was summarily executed. Chu Xun had still been a child, and instead of being tattooed and sent to the frontier, was reduced to the station of slave. His older sister, Chu Luo, was reduced to a prostitute. However, she was beautiful and talented. She became one of the capital's famous courtesans and transferred to the well-known Daylight House. Chu Xun had been a laborer at the examination center, working bitterly hard, washing the floors and cleaning the latrines, even getting beaten black and blue for listening in on lectures and sneaking books to read. So Chu Luo paid off a patron and the madam so that they could help her get Chu Xun into Daylight House as a musician. He was quick-witted and could pick up a seasonal tune after hearing it once. Could even compose a song or two of his own. Gradually, his reputation grew. All the prostitutes in the capital's brothels could be proud to sing a song Chu Xun had written for them. Many fresh faces came by to listen to his songs. The first time I went, I was dragged along by Qi Li, Qi Shang, and some other nephews. They were very mysterious about it, and insisted on pretending to be commoners when we went. When the sedan reached the door, I looked up and saw the name of Daylight House and said at once, "Your Imperial Uncle has no business in this place. You two go off and enjoy yourselves while I go over to Twilight House next door. When you're through, send someone next door to notify me." Daylight House and Twilight House were the same business, only one offered girls and the other boys. Chili said, "Do you think your nephews would invite you without consulting your preferences, Imperial Uncle? We've come to Daylight House today expressly so you can listen to the zither. The musician is the younger brother of the greatest beauty in the capital. Though in your eyes, Imperial Uncle, perhaps he is the capital's greatest beauty." My interest is piqued. When we entered Daylight House and saw Chu Xun, I did think he was quite handsome. His age and appearance both suited my taste perfectly. He was not yet as skilled in dealing with people then as now. With his smattering of fame, he was a little proud. He wouldn't even see an ordinary guest. Though Chi Qi Shang and the others had dressed in the commoner's clothes, it was clear at a glance to the discerning eye that their backgrounds were out of the ordinary. They couldn't even fool a slave. On the strength of my nephew's generosity, we entered the best private room together. Tea was brought and poured by remarkably deferential attendants who stooped and bowed. Chi Li and the others noticed that something wasn't right, but they lacked self-awareness. They even complained to me. Maybe you come by too often on your way to Twilight House. They recognize you. They were so green I couldn't be bothered to enlighten them. Chu Shun delayed his arrival until we had finished drinking a cup of tea. He brought his zither and played a rather rarefied piece, giving the room a feeling of remoteness. Chu Luo herself kept us company, coming over to pour tea. Chu Shun played well, but this refined sort of music, even played by the best of the best musicians, just wasn't suitable for listening to in a brothel. I felt dull and unsatisfied and began to drowse, only holding on to my last shred of wakefulness by admiring his face. That's a little harsh. My nephews could look at Chu Luo to keep their attention. When Chu Shun finished the song, he prepared to launch into the next one with a lofty look. I raised a hand to stop him and asked if we could hear a lighter tune instead. Chu Shun gave me a look of disdain, convinced that I lacked the taste to appreciate sophisticated music. Chu Luo hastily smoothed it over, telling Chu Shun to play a popular tune, while she sang and danced in accompaniment for part of it. Finally, the room livened up. This was a nice song. Did you write it? I asked Chu Shun. Yes, said Chu Shun. It is merely a vulgar melody. He seemed quite dissatisfied with his own composition, as if he thought a popular song could not appropriately display his talent and refinement. I could not stand to see such a beautiful youth progress further and further along the path of no return to cynicism, so I said, the vulgarity or elegance of a melody is only a matter of opinion. As long as many people enjoy listening to it, music is good. So-called vulgar music is actually easier and more natural. Why exert yourself in deliberate pursuit of elegance? Take many of the verses in the classic of poetry, for example. In their day, they might have been called the height of vulgarity, but to prosperity, they are the height of elegance. To posterity. I was like, wait a minute. I told him that actually these ditties were more suitable for him. He played them better than the elegant songs. He probably did not appreciate that comment. Chu Shun bowed his head and said he understood, but the light in his eyes and his expression on his face were in direct opposition to his words. Called it. It appeared that he took immense exception to my comments. Chu Luo continued her solicitous attentions towards my nephews. Chi Li had given her instructions beforehand, so she didn't come bother me. Chu Luo and Chu Shun must have both guessed the reason behind this, and probably my admiration for Chu Shun's appearance was a trifle naked. Under my notice, Chu Shun's expression became increasingly stiff and uncomfortable, and Chu Luo snuck occasional glances at me and her little brother with concern in her eyes. While Chu Luo and Chu Shun were performing together on zither and flute, Qi Shang asked me in a whisper, "What do you think of the musician, Uncle?" "Pretty good, but he puts on airs," I said. Qi Shang said, smiling, "Many people think that it's the airs that make him interesting." Chu Shun's so-called fame must have rested half on his musical talent and half on his appearance. Many of the people who came to hear him play must have shared my interests. "I think he would be better with less pretension," I said. "And I don't suppose he'll keep it up for long." Though our discussion was held in hushed tones, Chu Luo and Chu Shun must still have caught the gist. The song ended, Chu Shun, holding his zither, excused himself with no expression on his face, and Chu Luo asked that her little brother be dismissed. Chi Li, holding his wine cup, said, "It's for my uncle to say whether he can leave." The rest of us have no say in it. With a smile, he said to me, Uncle, can he leave? Chu Shun's expression stiffened further. Chu Luo began to tremble. Did I really look like a ruffian who would force myself on a humble man? Even after I nodded and waved my hand to send Chu Shun away, his expression remained stiff, and Chu Luo continued to tremble slightly. Not long after these events, I forgot all about them until some months later when Chi Li said to me, Do you still remember that zither player Chu Shun from Daylight House? I recalled him. Chi Li said, You really do have an eye for people, Imperial Uncle. The young musician hasn't been able to keep up his airs. He has gone to Twilight House and will be receiving clients tonight. It kind of feels a little gross that he really, really, really doesn't seem to be into it in the beginning, and kind of seems like it's a forced choice. Ooh. As a musician, Chu Shun had attracted quite a number of people who shared my interests. Among them, one or two could no longer hold back. Chu Luo was getting older, already into her 20s, no longer a slim and elegant girl in her teens. Her position as lead courtesan was slipping away as her reliable patrons diminished. Daily. She already had difficulty protecting herself, and certainly she could no longer protect him. Then she contracted a grave illness, and Chu Shun went straight to Twilight House. But there was something lamentable about this reversal. The youth Chu Shun, though lacking in social graces, had an appearance and clarity of spirit that I liked. When I heard that he really had entered Twilight House and would be receiving clients that night, Julie asked whether I was interested. I went. On the first night a prostitute receives clients, as a rule, the first encounter will be publicly auctioned off. I sat in a small room on the second floor, watching the commotion downstairs. Chu Shun was 18 or 19, a little old to be joining a brothel, but judging from this spectacle, for a year or two at least, he would certainly be at the peak of popularity. As I was spectating, before I could decide whether to bid, a noise came from the little door at the back of the room through which tea was brought in, and a person came from around behind the screen blocking the door. He fell to his knees. It was Chu Shun. He prostrated himself on the ground. I beg your highness to be merciful and bid on me. I will do my utmost to serve your highness. In the months since I had seen him, he had progressed greatly. He had figured out how to use connections and had come to entreat me. Chu Shun must have been schooled by recent experiences. He had probably offended some thorny individual and been forced to enter Twilight House. Now he was forced to come to me to avoid that person. Why have you come to me? I asked. And who are you trying to avoid? Chu Shun hung his head and spat out the words. Lord He. No wonder he had come to me. His Lord He must have been He Yu, an older cousin of the Empress Dowager in his 60s, who styled himself the Hai Tang Hermit. The self-proclaimed romantic of the old Hai Tang tree was in fact very romantic. My feelings about this were a touch complicated. Chu Shun had come to me because he considered me some improvement on He Yue. But to be some improvement on He Yue was not cause to celebrate. Yet my heart softened, and I agreed. Beside me, Chi Li sighed and said, Imperial Uncle, you are moved by the plight of beauty. When I placed a bid, naturally no one dared to fight me for it. So I became Chu Shun's first client, which came with nearly enough ostentation to equal the pomp of the bridal changer. I had thought that Chu Shun, working in a brothel with his dash of scholarly temperament, would surely put up an insufferable act of being under compulsion at first. So I deliberately ordered wine for the room to liven things up. Instead, contrary to expectations, Chu Shun held back his sleeve and poured wine for me. He urged me to drink, his manner natural and familiar, his voice easy. It was a great surprise to me. "You're an entirely different person from who you were some months ago," I said. Chu Shun threw back his head and downed the wine in his cup in one gulp. Smiling, he said, "Your Highness gave me a hint then, but I was frivolous and did not know myself. Now I have thoroughly grasped the meaning of self-awareness. When I think of myself before, it makes me want to laugh." Then he poured himself another cup and lifted it. "Thank you for your magnanimity that day, Your Highness." When we went to bed, Chu Shun was obliging and agreeable. While admittedly a touch inept, there was no bashfulness or posturing. I enjoyed myself immensely. The night was worth the cost, surpassing my expectations. Though that night had been a favor, Chu Shun later improved, and I gradually came to see him more and more often. Now the young master Chu Shun slept beside me with a polished piece of jade, a smooth and Now the young master Chu Shun sleeping beside me was a polished piece of jade, smooth and supple, a different person altogether from the lofty young musician. You could say that need has brought Chu Shun and me together. Chu Shun needed a major patron at Twilight House, and I, in my loneliness, wanted to have someone understanding to go to. Only now that Yu Tang and Wang Xin's rebellion was on the cusp of a crucial moment, was yet unsettled whether I would succeed in my capacity as spy. Yun Yu regularly went out on the town with me, and he was well acquainted with Chu Shun and knew his situation like the back of his hand. Chu Shun was innocent, supposing he was dragged into this. Moved by nothing more than fleeting sentimentality, I had brought Chu Shun home. Thinking about it now, it really had been inappropriate. But sending him back now wouldn't be especially appropriate either. When the Yuhua Pavilion affair was over, I would rethink the matter. Or you could just, send him home tomorrow. Why make it complicated? As for the appointment at Yuhua Pavilion, I did end up going. Why you gotta make stuff so complicated, my dude? Though my imperial nephew had ordered me not to visit pleasure houses in full public view, Yuhua Pavilion was not that kind of place. Yuhua Pavilion was a restaurant, the most famous in the capital. Its food wasn't the best, often a large plate containing only a heap of shredded greens garnished with 2 or 3 decoratively carved pieces of gourd was brought to the table under an elegant name representing itself as a dish. But the plate that this dish was served on was unmistakably the capital's most modish and most expensive. And Yuhua Pavilion was different from an ordinary restaurant. It did not do its business right out on the street. In the most central location of the capital's most flourishing pleasure street, it had encircled a patch of land with a compound. Surrounded by high walls ornamented by a big red gate, it had the look of a private mansion. The inside was also laid out like an ordinary mansion, with all the requisite inner and outer courtyards, gazebos, rockeries, ponds, trellises, and so on. The main hall was where guests were received. There were only private tables. Ordinary customers were not welcome. Each private area stood apart, and each one was different. The arrangements inside them suited the scenery of the season, spring and summer, autumn and winter. There were curtains of willow branches trailing in spring and bamboo mats covering the floor in summer. In autumn, the fruits of the harvest were displayed, and in winter, the scene was of fir mattresses and narcissus, and freshly picked winter sweet, along with a clay stove that warmed good Hua Diao wine. There we go. Moreover, the treatment guests received at Yuhua Pavilion was different from a regular restaurant. Clean, comfortable rooms were provided for bathing. If you enjoyed your meal too much and didn't want to leave, quite presentable couches were supplied for rest. If in the course of eating, bathing, and sleeping you felt lonely, gentle and lovely ladies or handsome and exquisite youths were always on hand to keep you company. My first time at Yuhua Pavilion, I had been brought by Yun Yu, and he had been very moved, saying with a sigh that in this place I would experience what it felt like to leave the profane world and step into the vastness of the universe. To tell the truth, I did not feel that. Simply put, Yuhua Pavilion was a place that traded on elegant encumberment by a restaurant and pleasure house. It was restrained roundabout. I liked to be direct about both drinking and whoring, so it didn't suit me. But I still nodded and praised its fashionableness. All I took from the experience was the sudden understanding that Yun Yu was actually very poetic. Regardless, I still enjoyed myself quite thoroughly. My strongest impression was of the Diao wine Yun Yu had warmed, the memory of which I kept with me to this day. Sadly, it was now nearly summer, and no time to drink warm wine. In addition, my arm had yet to heal, and so I had to abstain. Therefore, at the table, I ate only a bit of plain food and took 1 cup of wine to moisten my mouth and raise my spirits slightly. At this meal, Yun Tang, Wang Qin, and I, the 3 great tumors, sat together, and Yun Tang and Wang Qin had brought each along a little tumor of his own, making a perfect contrast, a brilliant sight. This unavoidably gave me a lasting feeling of poignancy. This meeting today was for the purpose of deciding the time to act, to seize the throne, to imprison or kill Chizzy. What time will suit your highness, Prince Huai? Yun Tang asked me. Any time, I said. Yun Tang and Wang Qin still had business to attend to in a few areas. Balancing the relative merits and shortcomings, the date was settled for the 15th of the 5th month. Isn't that just 1 month away? Counting it up, I had been part of the conspiracy for several years. About a month from now, there would at last be an end to it. Okay, so it is a month. Okay. When I rose from the table to visit the latrine, after leaving the room, I couldn't help feeling another bout of sentiment. During my years of participation, I had contributed to all their plans and strategies. Supposing the Emperor or the Empress Dowager really did become aware of it, and the whole thing went up in flames, had I 100,000 months, I would be unable to talk my way out of assumed guilt. I stood beside a rock in an open space. I heard Yun Yu's voice say, "Why is your highness standing here instead of returning to the table?" I thought the scenery was lovely and couldn't resist pausing to look, I said. Yun Yu smiled and came to stand beside me. He said nothing further. In the warm shades of late spring, he resembled a painting of infinite grace. On the subject of Yun Yu, I had always felt some qualms, which, combined with guilt, had formed an indescribable tangle. Yun Yu and Wang Xian were roughly of an age with my imperial nephews, and they had both been friendly with them in the past. Their familiarity with me had all come after I had joined the conspiracy. Perhaps because of Yun Yu's facility in social interactions, his father, Yun Tang, had given him an assignment in recent years. He had grown closer to me. Leaving aside the conspiracy and his background, Yun Yu was in fact delightful company, with some interests that dovetailed perfectly with mine. So I had gradually been going around with him more and more often, and he came regularly to Huai Manor. It was precisely this that had caused rumors to sprout up. Well, you did also accidentally kiss him. Yun Yu was the most remarkable among the aristocratic scions, and the court's young officials both. Admittedly, he was Yun Tang's son, but in erudition experience, craft, ability, and so on, he did indeed surpass others. Someone like Wang Shun, Wang Xuan, Wang Xuan, there we go, was clearly inferior. But perhaps he was too young and self-satisfied. A display of his abilities unavoidably made others say that he was sly and sophisticated, when in reality he was still too easygoing and nowhere near Liu Tongyi in terms of conduct. Therefore, though Liu Tongyi wasn't much older than him, at court he surpassed Yun Yu considerably on every front. Had there been no conspiracy, Yun Yu would certainly have been a future pillar of the court. But a month from now, when the rebellion was revealed, Yun Yu might not have even the ability to make it out with his life. I was often thrown into melancholy, sighing at the thought that Liu Tongyi might well be thinking of how to get rid of me. Whether he really did want to eliminate me, I could not know for sure, but each and every one of my own actions was indeed another step towards Yun Yu's death. Who was I to wallow in self-pity? Fortunately, I could guess that, should the rebellion succeed, Yun Tang, Wang Qin, and the rest would certainly act in concert to do away with me, leaving their two sides in opposition. Or perhaps they would borrow my strength to get rid of one side, then turn around and dispose of me. So even now, Yun Yu's every action might be a step in a plot against my life. That thought made me feel easier. Many things could not be considered in detail. The more one considered them, the more they chilled the heart. Taking the current situation as a whole, Yun Tang and Wang Qin wanted to seize the throne and kill Shizi. Shizi, in order to demonstrate my loyalty, to defend the Jing family's empire and Shizi's throne. Or Shizi's. Cues are hard. I was a spy inside the conspiracy and seeking the deaths of Yun Tang and the others. The Empress Dowager, Shizi, Liu Tongyi, and the court's honest officials thought that I was of a kind with Yun Tang and Wang Qin, so they wanted to kill me. Then the Yun and Wang factions both wanted to eliminate me, and even more to eliminate each other once the rebellion was a fight up comply. Circles within circles, every person a knife, and each also the fish on the slab. I still remembered when I had first become Yun Tang and Wang Qin's co-conspirator. During a discussion one day, Yun Tang had pointed to Yun Yu beside him and said, "This is my unworthy son Yun Yu, who made his first entry into court not long ago. I hope your highness, Prince Huai, might instruct him in the future." Yun Yu rose, bowed to me, and smiled. Though we had been acquainted before, it was only from that day forth which we really became familiar. I had never taken notice before, but now I realized that, well, he didn't seem to have changed at all in the interim. He had actually changed a lot. Quite a bit, you could say. Of course, so had I. When I had first become a spy, I had been coasting on a swell of pure hot blood. Now that the great work was on the point of fulfillment, my blood had cooled, and I was conscious of the passage of time. I couldn't help but sigh. Yun Yu looked at me with his eyebrows raised, still saying nothing. "This moment and scene make me wistful," I said. "Life always changing. When a moment is gone, there is no bringing back the time that is past. And at this moment, we cannot bring back the mood of the past." Yun Yu's lips tipped up slightly. Finally he said, "Your Highness, when the wish of many years is on the point of being fulfilled, why are you melancholy?" Since I was already feeling wistful, I might as well do it fully. It is precisely because of this that I cannot help feeling melancholy. I looked ahead of me at the swaying canopies of the trees. Supervisor Yoon, if you were not Grand Tutor Yoon's son, would you still be taking part in this? Yoon turned his head to look at me and said, What? Does your highness mean to ask whether it is only because of my father that I follow you? No, I said. Act for the moment as though I were not Prince Huai, only Jing Wei Yi, and I will see you only as Yun Yu. In that case, said Yun Yu, can only answer with 3 words. I don't know. He turned his head and looked into the distance as well. I don't normally think of such things. There's too much in front of me to think about anyway. Why concern myself with non-existent phantasms? Although, Yun Yu turned back and glanced at me with his brow furrowed. Can your highness still be hung up on Liu Tongyi? Is that the cause of your wistfulness? I mean, always, but... I froze, then said, Why would you say such a thing? That has nothing to do with it. With his hands behind his back, Yun Yu said, To speak freely, there's really no need for your highness to trouble yourself over much. The situation is what it is. Our positions have changed. It is outside of our control. I think that between us, on one hand, and the Emperor, the Empress Dowager, Liu Tongyi, and the honest officials on the other, cannot be said who is more righteous. The victor is king, and the loser is an outlaw. That is the sole genuine principle in this world. If we succeed, we are right. If we fail, we are traitors. Though His Majesty is your Highness's nephew and the present Emperor, if he wishes to be rid of us, why can we not wish to be rid of him? Eye for an eye. Very much so mentality. Hang on. He spoke so directly that it made me break out in sweat to hear him. There was sense in everything he said, but to say it so openly, he must have had no fear of being overheard. I turned the subject away. Don't worry, even if I were still hung up on Liu Tongyi, that would not cause me to disrupt our deployments. Now that you've brought up Chancellor Liu, I said, raising my hand to touch the wound on my arm, I will say that your gift is truly a little hard to stomach, Supervisor Yoon. Yun Yu smiled. I was just looking for a suitable time to explain that to your highness. It was a mistake on my part that caused your highness to be injured. My original plan did not include that. Your highness's wound was unintentional. According to Yun Yu, he hadn't known that I would take that road that day. He had previously arranged for the people reporting their grievance to be there, intending that they would stop the sedan, then stab Liu Tongyi. An assassination attempt on the Imperial Chancellor was no small matter. It would have necessitated a serious investigation. If I had taken the opportunity to volunteer myself to the Emperor, perhaps I could have taken over supervision on the case. This way, I would have been in and out of the Imperial Chancellor's residence to check in on him, deepening our relationship. Narrowing his eyes, Yun Yu said, When the plan was about to be carried out that day, I was sitting in a tea shop. I happened to see your highness's sedan enter Twilight House. Considering the time, I guessed that you might run into the action, so I instructed those people to act as they saw expedient, to stab Chancellor Liu or your highness as the chance presented itself. I didn't think it would be such a success, with your highness boldly rescuing Chancellor Liu. With an expression that seemed very moved, Yun Yu said, I suppose it was destiny. I'd have to be an idiot to take it for destiny. When it came to Yun Yu, I really had no idea what to do. Yun Yu smiled. He was outwardly apologetic, but had self-satisfaction written all over his face. I only said, "Thank you for thinking of me, Supervisor Yoon. I do not know whom you might love in the future, nor what kind of person they will be. I think that perhaps they will not have an easy time." All right, hang on. I'm going to grab my sweater real quick. I don't think we've even really turned on the AC very much. It's already chilly. Brr. Ugh. This is the reason why we keep the sweater. Ugh. This is the reason why we keep the sweater downstairs. Okay. Yun Yu's expression instantly stilled. Then, smiling again, he said, "Why?" "Your idea of a gift is to stab a person," I said. "From this, I infer that if you fell in love, you might prick that person as full of holes as a honeycomb." Granted that I was joking, this was also the truth. Yun Yu sometimes went overboard. If he married one day and his wife dared to look at another man or give him an extra smile, or an excessive word, perhaps it would provoke Yun Yu into a rage. He would stab her a few dozen times. Oof. Yun Yu laughed. "So that's how your highness sees me." Something was off about his tone. Realized that his expression had changed greatly, and his smile had morphed into a sneer. I was a little astonished. Yun Yu suppressed his sneer and said calmly, "Your Highness's injury was indeed an error on my part. I took only a brief interest in the matter of Chancellor Liu, but I have given offense. I hope your Highness will be magnanimous, make allowances for my shortcomings." With a flick of his sleeve, he turned and left. I was even more bewildered. Yun Yu had always been able to take a joke, and he had never spoken with such an attitude. Why would he suddenly act like this? Could it be that something I had said had inadvertently prodded some secret hurt of his? Not long after I had returned to the table, Yun Tang and Wang Qin went their separate ways. Yun Yu accompanied his father, and I left after them. Yun Yu had by now resumed his usual manner, as if our conversation in the open space had never happened. I treated it as if it had not happened as well, letting it go. When I had returned home and had just sat down, someone came to announce that Imperial Chancellor Liu had come for a visit. "Dude, I hope you sent Chu Shun back." Liu Tongyi was here. What had he come for? Maybe he thought it would be proper to come regularly to check on the condition of my injury. Maybe he had learned of me going to Yuhua Pavilion and was coming to investigate. At any rate, he couldn't be coming because he missed me. But despite that, I couldn't resist being glad for this visit. I went forward to receive him and took him to sit in the waterside pavilion in the rear courtyard. This pavilion was on the lake, with a floating walkway linking it to the shore. When renovating it, I had given particular instructions for some extra bends to be added to the floating walkway, so it zigzagged over the water, looking artistic from a distance. It might be said that in all of Huai Manor, this pavilion best demonstrated my elegance. So I led Liu Tongyi through one courtyard after another, and even when several times on the way he politely said, "Your Highness, we can sit anywhere at all," I persisted. It had to be the waterside pavilion. After about one mark, we finally reached the entrance to the floating walkway beside Four Seasons Lake. I said modestly to Liu Tongyi, I personally oversaw the construction of the waterside pavilion and the floating walkway. Every time I come to the pavilion, I feel as if my heart has escaped the mundane and become like the water, like the wind touching the sky. Yes, Liu Tongyi said positively. Listening to your highness, I also feel as though I am floating, leaving the mundane. Receiving his confirmation, my pleasure was heartfelt. As we followed the floating walkway and came to a small gazebo midway, I put my hand on Liu Tongyi's shoulder and stopped. Liu Tongyi stood still as well, looking a little startled. I smiled faintly at him and rotated a stone crane beside a supporting beam in a half circle. The floating walkway that had been connected to the land retracted, accompanied by the clank of machinery, breaking contact with the lakeshore. As expected, surprise and inquiry appeared in Liu Tongyi's expression. Modest again, I said, "This retractable walkway is also something I thought of and brought in a craftsman to make." I looked out on the mirror-like surface of the lake. Because I am often sunk too deeply in the mundane, retracting the walkway makes my heart feel more thoroughly divorced from the noise of the world. Liu Tongyi looked at me, and the corners of his lips twitched. He said, "Your Highness truly is a man free of earthly concerns." I stared at him and said earnestly, "No, I am a vulgar man. I often strive to improve." Liu Tongyi's lips moved again. Also very earnest, he looked at me and said, "Your Highness, I think you are already far enough removed from the vulgar as it is." I held back my undulating emotions. "Chancellor Liu, do you mean that sincerely?" Liu Tongyi smiled and nodded. "I do." At this moment, I could not suppress the surging torrent in my heart. Unable to help myself, I said, "I find that at a time like this, my thoughts can find an echo in yours. I wonder if I might occasionally call you Ranci." I had recited the name Ranci in my heart as many times as there were stars in the sky. But it was only on the current strength of my emotions that I could ask this question. Liu Tongyi froze, then smiled again. "If your Highness is willing to address me that way, then I am inexplicably honored." His hair wasn't fully bound up today, and his figure in its thin jade-green robe seemed ready to dissolve amongst the blue-green of the lake. There were the most apparent of formalic pleasantries. These were the most apparent of formalic pleasantries. I took them to mean he really did consent, so I called out, "Ranci." Liu Tongyi was still smiling. "Your Highness." I led Liu Tongyi into the pavilion. The waterside pavilion had only 5 or 6 rooms. Apart from the 2 rear corners, where a washroom and latrine were fully partitioned off, the rest of the rooms opened onto each other, spacious and bright, with only screens, bead curtains, or carved wooden shelves making an incomplete partition. I took Liu Tongyi around to have a look at everything, and then we sat on either side of a small table behind a curtain of crystal. I took up the tea set on the table and made tea. Liu Tongyi lent a hand. I was just wondering how tea would be brought once the floating walkway leading to the shore was retracted. It turns out that this has been arranged. "I often spend time here," I said, "so all kinds of things are fully prepared." Actually, apart from when I wanted to cool off in summer, I didn't come here much. The princess had liked this place very much and often came to it as a retreat. This way, she wouldn't see me, and if she sighed, played the zither, recited poetry, or cried, I wouldn't know about it. Both sides had peace. I suspected that this was where she had clandestine meetings with the guard. Perhaps her child had been conceived on the bed here. As such, all the furnishings in the waterside pavilion had been swapped out over the last few days and smelled brand new. I hoped Liu Tongyi wouldn't notice. The tea leaves, tea set, water, mixed fruits, pastries, and so on were all also present because I had instructed Chief Steward Chiao to prepare them at once while I went to receive Liu Tongyi. Liu Tongyi added tea leaves to the pot. Well, this place is tranquil. It is built on the water and is very damp. Your Highness's wound has not healed yet. You ought to rest in drier retiring rooms for the time being. Yes, I lamented. With this injury, I must temporarily be more vulgar. Liu Tongyi's hand paused as he held a silver spoon of tea leaves. He said nothing. As the steam coiled, the room filled with the aroma of tea. I said, Rancy, it is very good of you to go out of your way to come see me so often. I caused your Highness to be injured, said Liu Tongyi. If your Highness says such a thing again, I will not be able to endure it. Pouring the tea, I said, You come at a lucky time today, Rancy. I had just returned from Yuhua Pavilion. If I had been 1 mark later, I might have missed you. There is no coincidence at all, said Liu Tongyi. I knew your Highness had gone to Yuhua Pavilion today. Holding up his teacup, he turned his head to look at me. I thought that your Highness would be back by now, so I came over. No luck involved. My hand paused. I put my teacup on the table. You speak candidly beyond my expectations. You are always so polite and formal with me, I had thought that it would be near impossible to hear you speak from the heart. Rancy had spoken openly to me of Yuhua Pavilion. What did he mean of it? I felt a myriad of emotions when he said this, yet all of them left me bereft. Because your Highness speaks candidly, if I continued to conceal and evade, it would be too pompous of me. He smiled and then put down his teacup. Every word your Highness spoke earlier had poetry underlying it. Each phrase floated in the ether, perfectly refined. I am a truly vulgar person. I do not know how best to address your Highness when you are so refined. This is all I can manage. I froze amid the refined steam rising from the tea, a little bewildered. Well, Rancy, I think that you... Liu Tongyi leaned against the table, frowning slightly. Actually, I have never understood your Highness's attitude. When your Highness speaks to others, it isn't like this, but as soon as you speak to me, you immediately seem to become a different person. Therefore, my manner in front of your Highness has always been fearful, my speech carefully considered and affected. I feel like his feelings might actually be returned. I'm getting a hint that there might be something going on. Like, he remembered that conversation from all those years ago and is coming to visit and seemed affected when he saw Chu Shun. Like, he had some feathers ruffled from that experience. Like, he was not particularly happy about that. I was frozen for a long time, then finally put my hand to my forehead and let out a lengthy sigh. Of course I can't fool you. The difference between a put-upon act and true elegance is apparent. Yeah, no, I agree, Mars Rover. I'm getting a hint. Just a hint of something. It was as if a hammer had smashed my misty dream. I couldn't help saying with a smile. Actually, it cost me a great deal of effort to talk like that. If I'd known you suffered so much to hear it, wouldn't have suffered so much myself. The mist dispersed, the clouds parted. It turned out that it was I, and not Liu Tongyi, who had been up in the air all this time. "Thank you for being direct today, Chancellor Liu," I said. "I don't know how long I would have gone on like this otherwise. I'll tell you the truth. I don't often come to this waterside pavilion. I've gone out of my way to receive you here so I could put up a front. It's true that I oversaw the construction of the pavilion, but it was only renovated, not rebuilt." Liu Tongyi raised his eyebrows. I said, "This place was built by my father. He called it the diligence room. When I was little, he would lock me up in here every day to study. The mechanism for retracting the bridge used to be operated from the shore, not from this end. He would retract the bridge, and all I could do was sit here and behave myself. It was like being in a water prison. Even after it was renovated, I still feel a little nervous here." Smiling, Liu Tongyi said, "So that's it. No wonder these bookshelves over there are filled with things like Throne of the Gods and A Hero in Troubled Times." "So that's what gave me away," I said with a bitter smile. "How embarrassing." I looked at Liu Tongyi. "Rancy, since we have discarded the formalities and the posturing, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of me as a person? At court, everyone says that I am the court's greatest malignant tumor, a power-hungry, treacherous prince, a troublemaker at heart. What do you think?" I fixed my gaze upon him. Liu Tongyi's expression was calm. "A person might not even have a clear idea of what kind of a person he is himself. How could outsiders pronounce an accurate judgment? Treachery or loyalness are only standpoints. People in different positions have different views. Nothing in the world is absolute." "And you, Rancy," I said, "what do you think my standpoint is?" Liu Tongyi did not answer. I looked at the surface of the lake outside the waterside pavilion. "Let me speak a little plainer today. It gratifies me very much that you didn't answer just now because you didn't speak a falsehood in front of me. I often wonder if I weren't Prince Huai and you weren't Liu Tongyi, would we at least be able to be good friends? If I did not have the title of Prince Huai, I really would only want to be a carefree idler. If you do not have to be Imperial Chancellor, what would you want to do, Chancellor Liu?" "Well," said Liu Tongyi, "I suppose I would also want to be an idler wandering all over the world. Idleness truly is the rarest of things. Ain't that the truth?" I stood. "Rare it is. There are so many things outside of one's control. For example, I am currently doing something and I do not know whether it is right or wrong." Liu Tongyi walked over beside me. "I think everyone must encounter situations in which right and wrong are hard to determine. There is something I want to say to your Highness, though I don't know whether it is right or wrong. While your Highness's injury is yet to heal, you should not go to places like Yuhua Pavilion." I turned and stared at Liu Tongyi and finally managed to ask, "Rancy, as far as my injury goes, do you suspect that I actually arranged it on purpose so that I could get closer to you?" Liu Tongyi looked back at me, his expression in his eyes still as calm as water. I had not thought that at all. "Your Highness did no such thing. I thought that if Yun Yu had sent 100 people to brandish their knives and stab me as full of holes as a honeycomb. It would have been worth it to hear this. Pressing on, I asked, "Well, would you think that I might have ulterior motives for getting close to you?" Liu Tongyi's expression stiffened. With a bitter smile, I said, "Don't answer that." And he did not speak. Only after a moment and then another moment, I heard a soft sigh. 100,000 emotions surged relentlessly in my heart. In spite of myself, I said, "Whether you believe it or not, in everything I say to you, everything I do for you, there is never any ulterior motive." Having said it, I was the first to think it ridiculous. "No, that's wrong. I ought to say that I have nothing but ulterior motives." I met Liu Tongyi's eyes as they turned on me. "Rancy, actually, I love you?" Oh my. My dude just went out and said it. I was not expecting that. Like, he just flat out said, I guess I'm used to protags, like, not actually confessing until, like, the end, maybe? This is... Chapter 4. Yeah, a confession? Oh, shoot. Chapter 4? I mean, how many times has he actually talked to Rancy? That's quick. Yeah. Yeah, that's real quick. Like, let's see how he took it, because immediately after I added, "I only wanted to tell you. You don't need to answer." Good. I had a fairly good idea of how Rancy would answer me. Liu Tongyi stared at me. Suddenly, his expression seemed a little lost. Do not blame him. I'm a little lost. Like, after a moment, he said, "I see." It was a surprise to me that I had said it. Not surprised about that. And just as well that I had. Perhaps saying it now was for the best. Heaven, or I myself, had finally given me an opportunity. I had thought that I would never live to say it, and having said it, I became increasingly forthright. Everyone, even him, is a little lost. I agree, Mars Rover. I said point blank, "There's no need to worry, Chancellor Leo. I'm only saying this because for once I felt like telling the whole truth. I know you are an honorable man and cut-sleeve tendencies are nothing to flaunt. I'm sure that my saying these things to you will make you unhappy. I really am sorry. Very sorry. I don't know myself why I should love you, but I've never been able to let it go. I already regret telling you. Once you leave here, Rancy, just forget everything that happened here today. If you distance yourself from me now and don't come visit again, it would be completely understandable." I had kept my eyes on the surface of the lake outside as I spoke. When I was finished, I was still looking at the water and kept looking. Beside me, Liu Tongyi appeared quite calm. My heart hung suspended, waiting. A long moment later, I heard him speak again. He said, "I see." Then once again, there was nothing. I mean, that was a lot to take in. So, like, I don't blame the guy for being like, "Oh, okay. Um, hmm. I couldn't resist looking at him. He was also looking at me. I resisted the point that I could resist no more. I said, Rancy, isn't there anything else you want to say to me? Liu Tongyi raised his eyebrows and said, with his affections at Mount Wu engaged, what needs King Xiang in dreams to seek Jiangnan? I smiled bitterly. Don't worry, Chancellor Liu. Henceforth, I will not mention such things again. It grows late, Liu Tongyi said. I fear if I stay longer, I will be disturbing your Highness's rest. I will bid you farewell. Ouch. The vapors from the lake beyond the railing seeped into the folds of my clothing. Cold entered my heart. Very well, I said. I'll see you out. Liu Tongyi and I left the waterside pavilion together. It was dusk now, with ruddy clouds covering half the sky, and the whole lake sunk in twilight. When we reached the gazebo that contained the machinery, I rotated the stone crane, and the floating walkway clanked out once more to link to the shore. I said, Renzi. Liu Tongyi turned his head and stopped walking. I smiled. Don't worry. Once we leave here, I won't call you that again. Liu Tongyi's expression wavered, as if he wanted to say something, but he did not say it. Real quick. So the line that Rancy said about with his affections at Mount Wu engaged, what needs King Xiang in dreams to seek Jiangnan. So this line references King Xiang of Chu from the Warring States period. Song Yu's Rhapsody of Gao Tong recounts how the king heard of a goddess who lives on Mount Wu and became infatuated with her. Okay. Okay. So maybe he's calling him out for Chu Shun. Maybe, or he's saying you're putting me on a pedestal. Maybe. I'm a little lost on that point. Like, I know he's saying. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure. Halfway through the night, I stood outside the door to my bedroom, looking at the solitary moon and coldly twinkling stars. I couldn't sleep. Chu Shun's footsteps started and stopped behind me, then started again, and at last crept up to my side. Your Highness, it is late, and the dews are heavy. Go to sleep. So I returned to the room with him. I lay down and still found it hard to sleep. Suddenly, close to my ear, Chu Shun said softly, Your Highness, I would like to return to Twilight House. Dude can't catch a break. I rolled over and took his hand under the covers. Ami no longer wishes to stay with me. Staying here, I can only give your Highness no help, perhaps only make trouble, said Chu Shun. I frowned and said, Who told you that? Chu Shun did not speak again, but in fact it would be good for him to return to Twilight House. So I sighed and said, Then stay with me until tomorrow. After breakfast, I'll have you escorted back. Thank you, Your Highness, Chu Shun said quietly. The next morning, Chu Shun returned to Twilight House. My bed was once again empty, and my heart felt empty too. Some days later, Yun Yu once again invited me to Yu Hua Pavilion. This time, we occupied only a small, secluded courtyard, the two of us sitting on the veranda. Yun Yu said, I detect an anxious cast to your Highness's expression. Have you suffered some recent setback? Picked up my wine cup. That's funny. If you can detect anxiety on my face, you might easily take over the work of the Ministry of Justice or the Court of Judicial Review or the soothsayer in the street. Yunyu shook his head. You flatter me. It's too bad there's no mirror here for your highness to see your face. He rotated his wine cup with a half smile. I hear Chu Shun recently returned to Twilight House. He isn't the moody sort. Did you do something to upset him, your highness? I rubbed the center of my brow and set down my cup. Supervisor Yoon, what gossip have you been listening to now? Just tell it to me all at once. Yoon Yu sipped his wine and said with a smile, It's nothing, only I've heard that lately your highness has begun another love affair. You've turned your attentions to Chancellor Liu and have no more time for young Master Chu Shun. I thought this was a scurrilous room. I gotta look that one up. Hang on. It's Scurrilous. I have never seen that word before. ILOUS. Let's see how it's said. Scurrilous. Making or spreading scandalous claims about someone with the intention of damaging their reputation. Scurrilous. Well, there's your Scrabble word of the year. Thought this was a scurrilous rumor, but seeing your highness's expression today, the romantic tragedy written across your features, I'm forced to conjecture and ask pointed questions. I am being a little meddlesome. Don't take offense, your highness. Here, I'm going to type it in the chat so you guys can see how ridiculous this word is. Because it is ridiculous. Look at that word. Okay. I am being a little meddlesome. Don't take offense, your highness. I had expected Yun Yu to know about Chu Shun returning to Twilight House. As for Rancy visiting that day, and my taking him to the waterside pavilion, Yun Yu must have been aware of that too. If he didn't say something to me about it, that wouldn't be like Yun Yu. Feigning glibness, I said, Chancellor Liu's visit to Huai Manor was perfectly ordinary. Though I really do not know why Chu Shun suddenly wanted to return to Twilight House. I haven't felt comfortable going to see him again these past few days, alas. Chu Shun isn't normally moody, said Yun Yu. Go see him, your highness. Say something. I think it'll be fine. Hasn't your highness always been good at talking people around? Thank you for the compliment, Supervisor Yoon, I said unflappably, though I am certainly unworthy of such praise. Speaking of which, your anger must have burned out since you invited me to dine. A few days ago at Yuhua Pavilion, I really don't know what I said to upset you. Your expression was all wrong. Was it really something I said that touched a sore spot? Yunyu's expression stilled slightly. He said indifferently, Oh, I would have forgotten all about it had your highness not mentioned it. I don't think so. I just happened to run into some trouble that day, so I behaved a little rudely. Please forgive me. I don't think he's ever forgotten a single slight given to him. And it's going to come back to bite our homeboy in the ass. I had brought this up only to stop... no. It's nothing, I said hastily. I was just mentioning it. I had brought this up only to stop Yunyu talking and facilitate changing the subject. Half a pot of wine later, with feigned carelessness, I asked Yunyu, "How have things been at court lately? I've not been to the palace these past few days." Yunyu's brows pinched together. "It's been all right, perfectly peaceful on the surface, only His Majesty, almost certainly knows something. He is making preparations." Yunyu fixed his eyes on me. "His Majesty has not summoned Your Highness these past few days?" I shook my head. "No." There had been absolute silence from Shishi recently. Since that day at Huai Manor, when I had given him that earnest counsel, I had not been summoned into the imperial palace, into the imperial presence. But that had put me into a precarious state. I didn't know what the emperor was planning. "There will certainly be preparations," I continued. "We considered that when laying out our plans. But they are unlikely to have concrete evidence, and none of the generals or ministers have taken action recently. Come the 5th month, everything will be as good as settled. Even if they know, there will be nothing they can do to us." Frowning, Yunyu said, "I suppose so." He held back He held back his sleeve and poured the wine. "But my father has heard a piece of news. In the next few days, His Majesty may be summoning Your Highness Prince Huai and some other princes to the palace for a conference. I do not know for what purpose." This news surprised me somewhat. The Empress Dowager had always kept me strictly segregated from the older princes, and in order to keep us from joining forces, often played favorites among us. Apart from the first day of each year, or some major event we were required to attend together, I had scarcely ever discussed affairs of state with the other princes of my generation. If this news were true, I could surmise little Chizzy's intentions. "Then I'll find out when I go," I said. Yunyu looked at me. "I have always counseled Your Highness in the past, and I must say it again. Liu Tongyi is a difficult character. Your Highness ought to stay away from him. Do not be taken in by him." I couldn't help smiling. "You worry too much. Suaya. What could Liu Tongyi do to take me in, and how could I be taken in?" "Oh yes, Suaya. I trust you have been managing in the imperial presence and at court?" Yunyu looked at me again, then down the wine in his cup in one gulp. Then he said, "It is only at such a time that Your Highness would use my courtesy name. I am so unaccustomed to hearing it that it took me a moment to understand what you were saying." He looked at me with another half-smile. "It seems that Your Highness's feelings for Chancellor Liu are profound indeed." It must be said that Yunyu's eyes were very sharp. "So what if they are?" I said. "I'm not so dazzled that I can't see how things stand. We just aren't the same kind of person. Sometimes who one has feelings for or doesn't is down to fate." Yunyu nodded slowly, his eyes settling on some unknown spot. "Very true. Must be fate." He raised his hand, poured another cup of wine, and downed it. I also raised my cup. Inadvertently, we emptied 3 or 4 pitchers. Pitchers? Damn. All right. Must be weak wine. What you sippin', Merlot? Moscato? When the wine in the 4th pitcher ran out, Yunyu stood and went to bring a 5th from inside. It seemed he had been prepared today. A full jar had already been prepared. After a few more cups, my head began to feel heavy. I waved my hand and said, "Enough, enough. I can't drink any more. Trying to drown one's sorrows in wine only brings more sorrow. Let's put an end to it." Yun Yu, leaning against the railing, shook the wine pitcher. "When you have drunk 1,000 cups, drink to intoxication, then 1,000 sorrows will be relieved." "That's spurious reasoning," I said. "Anyway, let's say I am sick with frustration over unrequited longing for Chancellor Liu. You're guzzling down no less than I am. Was I right? Is there a knot in your chest you wish to ease?" Clutching the wine pitcher, Yunyu frowned. He stared at me, then suddenly said, "Since wine cannot relieve our sorrows, shall we switch to a different method?" He put down the wine pitcher. Leaning against the railing, he smiled at me. "What if the two of us, with our inextinguishable sorrows, help each other find some relief?" "How?" I asked. Yunyu looked at me with a smile. "Is your Highness's heart so set on pursuing Chancellor Liu that you cannot understand me even when I put it like this?" "Indeed, I do not understand," I said. Yunyu looked at me for a moment, straightened up, and came to me. Another moment, and I froze. "I'm not an idiot." Naturally, I understood what Yunyu meant. I had heard these jokes before. It was just that they had only ever been jokes. But now, in my youth, as Chitan and Chili did now, I too had often taken coquetry for romance. I remember I had frequented brothels then, and once wrote a slightly salacious and not very prosadically sounding quatrain. The fog dances on round cherries. The dew weighs down banana fronds. The moon rises into emerald waters. Tonight the cotton rose lies becalmed. Pile of nonsense to look at it now. Wanted very much to pretend I hadn't written it. But at the time I had been very pleased with myself. Even inscribed the poem on a bed canopy and presented it to the prostitute who was with me then. Of course, he couldn't very well have told me it was bad, and looked touched when he received it. Every man has been frivolous in his youth. This moment, with my lips and tongue locked with Yun Yu's, the final two lines of the poem inexplicably emerged in my mind, and I didn't know why. Let's pause there. At this moment, with my lips and tongue locked with Yun Yu's, just a messy chapter. Like, my man, what are you doing with your life? Rebellion, sudden confessions, and lip locking with your buddy. Are you speed running midlife crises right now? Because, like, that really seems like what you're doing. And you're not doing it well. Perhaps it was the stillness of the flowers at the base of the steps, perhaps the softness of the breeze on the veranda, or perhaps the faint fabric perfume within my embrace. Yeah, bro is going through it, Peacock Pages. He really is. To tell the truth, however you looked at it, temper aside, there was no fault to be found with Yu Niu. I knew he wasn't like me and normally had no thoughts in that direction. But right now, I couldn't very well resist having such thoughts. A part of me wonders if Yu Niu is just kind of like honeypotting him to be like, hey, seeming to waver on that revolt plot. Like, let's bring it back in, buddy. Like, hey. Because I just don't like him. He feels very slimy. I knew he wasn't like me and normally had no thoughts in that direction. But right now I couldn't very well resist having such thoughts. When I had nearly sunk into those waters, I captured a sliver of reason, took Yunyu by the shoulders, and moved him away from me. I took a deep breath and with forced calm said, "Supervisor Yoon, this isn't something to joke about." Yunyu's eyes were like a lake wreathed in mist, slightly curved. "Now your highness has stopped calling me Suaya." One sentence, a handful of words, became a fine silk thread that stitched a circle at the very tip of my heart. I smiled bitterly. "Supervisor Yoon, another step and the joke will become reality." "And if it really should relieve our sorrows, why not?" Yunyu said. He was also smiling. "Your highness and I are already established in rumor anyway." "Rumor is one thing," I said, "and reality is another. I recall that you aren't one of my kind, Supervisor Yoon." "It's only to relieve our sorrows," Yunyu said. "Why quibble?" The worry was that this relief would only lead to even more sorrow. I sighed and said, "Suaya, I'm not blind. You have something on your mind today. I can tell." There was a smile on Yunyu's lips, but none in his eyes. Instead, his expression held confusion. It looked a little like that common saying, "Might as well be hanged for a sheep as a lamb." Continued, "You're keeping it all bottled up inside, presumably because you have encountered some difficulty you can't share with others. But you can't fall out with yourself over that. What's more, what if after we've finished relieving our sorrows that I fall for you, but you have someone else? What would I do then?" Yunyu laughed. "Your Highness's heart is filled with Chancellor Liu. No one else will fit. I wouldn't be so unreasonable as to try forcing my way in." He disentangled himself and took a few steps back. My arms felt colder without him. Then I rose. "Even if you mean nothing by it, Suaya, could you call me Chengjun?" Chengjun. Yunyu stood by the table a few steps away from me, looking at me now and then. Finally, he said, "I do not dare. When your highness becomes emperor, if we have a falling out one day, perhaps it will be counted as an offense that I dared to call you by name." It's precisely because of this that even if Yunyu had been to me like a favorite type of grass to a rabbit, would have gnawed the bark off all the old trees in the world before turning my thoughts to him. We were fellow conspirators, wary of each other, and in reality I was plotting against Yunyu. If I were to do anything of a relieving type with him, I would truly be inhumane. Yunyu picked up the wine pitcher again and poured out a cup. He raised it and downed it in one gulp. "Fine. If it would be an imposition, carrying on will only be irritating. That would be no good." He looked at me with a half smile. "I hadn't thought your highness's feelings for Chancellor Liu were so profound. Is Liu Tongyi all that?" Returned to my seat and gave a cough. "That's a matter of opinion. I like his looks, and his temperament seems to suit me." Yunyu nodded, then said nothing else. Painful silence followed. I felt embarrassed and couldn't keep my seat. I rose and said, "I have other things to do. I must leave." "Please go on ahead, your highness," Yunyu said dully. "I will stay a while longer." "Very well, then," I said. When I turned to leave, Yunyu said behind me, "If your majesty really does summon your highness to the palace for a conference, please pay attention." I turned and said, "Don't worry. No matter what, his highness can't really arrest his imperial uncle just like that." Except that Yunyu had told me to pay attention, not to be careful. There must have been something strange afoot. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 4. That's still kind of a lot. How many is that? It's like 40 pages. Okay. I'm going to take a quick popcorn break. We are at chapter 5. But oh my goodness, what a chapter that was. Like, I'll still do chapter 5. I just need a sec because that was a lot. Like, dude. That was kind of a doozy. You're telling me. Dude's gotta get his life in order. Really learn to communicate better. Or rather, timing. He apparently communicated really well with Chancellor Liu. Or Tong Yi. Timing is very important, my dude. There's some definitely fishy about Yunyu. Like, I wonder if he does actually have a little bit of affection for him, but like, I don't know about him. I hope this isn't a tragedy. Cause like, I'm just feeling sorry for our dude. He legit is just like, I just kind of want to live my life and not have people bug me and like have a husband or wife. That's what I'm wondering. I can't tell if he's jealous or just leaving. Yeah. I don't know, Peacock Pages. I'm almost ready to restart, guys. I kind of wonder if Chu Shun is kind of in on part of this plot. I don't know. That's a whole other issue. Alright, one more handful. I feel kind of bad just sitting here eating popcorn. But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying so far. It's kind of been a wild ride tonight. Alright. So. Okay. Thank you for being patient. Okay. Chapter 5. Yun Tang's information was indeed useful. The next day, first thing in the morning, an imperial edict arrived ordering me to go to the palace for a conference. This gathering seemed quite imposing. Apart from myself, a number of the other princes in the generation above His Majesty had come. Prince Zong, Prince Jia, Prince Fu, Prince Shou, Prince Liu and I, put together, we made up a banquet of 6 princes. I didn't know what matters the Emperor planned to confer with me and the 5 other princes about at this conference. Chizdi was very young, but his statecraft was sophisticated. His actions were often beyond expectation, making it difficult to guess his intentions. I had grown lazy from my days recuperating at home. In my formal attire, with my hair in a crown, I felt quite constrained, and on top of that, it was almost summer. The many layers of my court robes felt stifling. I had to put a fan in my sleeve so I could at least cool off in the sedan. In the palace, a young eunuch came forward to lead me to Zayuan Hall, a tranquil hall with a spacious and cool interior, not far from the Imperial Gardens. When I arrived, Prince Jia, Qili, and Prince Liu were already seated. Prince Shou was in poor health, and for some years Shou Manor had been, for all intents and purposes, under Qili's control as heir. Prince Shou could not undertake the journey today, and so Qili was substituting for him as usual. Qili stood and bowed to me. I exchanged courteous greetings with my cousins, Prince Jia, what am I trying to say? Prince Liu, and then took a seat. The head seat in Shudi Hall was the Emperor's throne, while the other 6 were arranged in 2 rows of 3 facing each other. I ought to have sat at the end of the western row, but Qili had come in his father's place, and he belonged to the generation below me, so he sat in the last seat instead. Moved up 1 position and sat between Prince Liu and Qili. As soon as I sat down, I took out my fan to cool myself. Across from me, Prince Jia frowned. My 5 cousin princes were all much older than me, especially Prince Zong and Prince Jia, who were the eldest, even older than my father would have been. Those 2 had never had much contact with me, and certainly they had no opinion of Huai Manor's style or my proclivities. Probably no good opinion. I'm sure they definitely had an opinion. There had been discord between the father of Chengjun and the current Prince Jia and my father. Reportedly, the resentment originated in a struggle for favor between the consort mothers of the late Prince Jia and my father. The previous Prince Jia had been in league with Liu Xian and his ilk, and he had repeatedly asked the Tongguang Emperor to take away my father's military authority in order to forestall his supposed rebellion. To allay his grudge against my father, the Tongguang Emperor had assigned the late Prince Jia's son, Chengdian, to my father's forces and told my father to instruct him in warcraft and martial arts. But Chengdian, being proud and ambitious, would never submit to my father's discipline. Once, when my father returned to the capital, Chengdian seized the opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the foreign forces on his own initiative and, as a result, fell into a trap and lost over 1,000 soldiers. My father punished him in accordance with military procedure. The late Prince Jia went to my father to intercede for him, but my father never deviated from his course. He refused, and father and son hated him even more, believing that the whole thing had been a setup for my father to ensnare Chengdian. The feud became even more entrenched. Oh, if you fuck up, my man, especially in the military. By the time the Ying Chang Emperor Emperor ascended the throne, and my father voluntarily relinquished part of his military authority to Chengdian and recommended him to the Ying Chang Emperor for promotion to commander-in-chief. The late Prince Jia, Chengdian, the Ying Chang Emperor all thought that my father was insincere. They didn't appreciate it at all. Though Jia Manor and Huai Manor had always been at odds, Chengjun truly was a loyal prince. When the Empress Dowager pretended to recruit me, Chengjun thought that I had consolidated my power over the court and was planning unknown insults against the Emperor's loyal subjects. So he tossed his sleeves in rage and gave up that bit of military authority, which no one had ever wanted him to give up, and shut himself in Gia Manor to write poetry expounding upon his emotions all day. I heard that for a time one whole wall of Gia Manor's study had been plastered with Prince Gia's sentimental poems. Among them, one long poem, the Song of the Old Goose, was particularly well known. In it, Prince Gia compared Chizzy to the sun, me to dark clouds blotting the sky, and himself to a firm and unyielding old goose. Is he going to chase him out? He was convinced that all good and evil in the world would ultimately receive their just rewards. One day there would be an end to all treacherous ministers. Dark clouds could only temporarily obscure the sun and the sky. In the end, the world would burn away the blight and reveal the universe in its full brilliance. The old goose, though his wings be broken by hail, his feathers all plucked by the raging wind swirling through the dark clouds, and his head nearly burrowed in snow, would continue to lie dormant in heaps of withered grass on the branches of old trees, holding his head high to look to the sky until the day came when sunlight shone upon him, letting him regrow his plucked feathers and soar through the blue heavens beside the sun. Prince Gia collected the long and short poems he had written over the years into an anthology, which he called Songs of a Wild Goose in a Thatched Hut. He had dozens of copies printed. My father-in-law, Li Yu, had received one and had said that when he read it, he wept and did not eat for 2 days. Out of curiosity, I also got myself a copy. I was young and impetuous then. Reading the Song of the Old Goose left me very moved. Could not help offering commentary. Oh boy. Why do I have a feeling he's about to stick his foot in his mouth and make it worse? Wild geese migrate north in spring and summer and travel south in autumn and winter. How could one have its wings broken by hail or be buried in snow? Only a house sparrow or something of the sort spends all 4 seasons in one place. Like, I feel sorry for you, but also like you're doing it to yourself. So, like, I spoke these words while standing on the veranda in Huai Manor. There were more than a few spies among Huai Manor's servants. Before the day was out, my words became known outside my residence and passed from mouth to mouth till at last the whole capital knew that Prince Huai had said the old goose Prince Gia was no better than a house sparrow. For a time, all the capital's literati who believed themselves sole beacons of purity in this polluted world were righteously indignant. They wrote poems and articles to express their feelings. The natural order had been turned upside down. The sparrow ran amok, while the wild goose could not spread his wings. Sparrow even dared to mock the brave eagle. Someone made a drawing of a fat sparrow squatting on the back of a little rooster. The caption read, "Disdain for all creation." Servant came with that drawing and some poems to report to me. Your Highness, the capital's pedants are mocking your Highness. Was at a loss. Let them mock. It must be known that the mouths of pedants were like the waters of a flood. The more you try to stop them, the harder they gush. Could only look at the drawings and say, the sparrow is round and fat, which is very endearing, and the little rooster is drawn very vividly. It's quite nice. Let them do whatever they will. Everyone likes different birds. Some people like eagles and geese, while I quite like sparrows. Naturally, these words in turn were repeated to the spies, and by the spies, and again passed through many mouths, transforming into all kinds of rumors. One rumor went that Prince Huai had said that the sparrow ate well, and while geese and eagles went hungry, so sparrows were greater than geese and eagles. Another went that Prince Huai had compared himself to a prosperous sparrow and was proud to like handsome roosters. The hecklers were a swarm of house flies to him. Yet another went that Prince Huai had said he was like a sparrow and could do without these orioles and swallows. To compare the enraged defenders of justice to effeminate aureoles and swallows was terrible insult and slander. These rumors naturally made the righteously indignant literati even more righteous and indignant, and to the record of my achievements, in addition to persecuting loyal subjects, another brilliant page was added. Therefore, Prince Jia's ability to greet me with the bare minimum of politeness today showed excellent understanding and considerable self-restraint. He had always been a stickler. When I began to fan myself in Ziyud Hall, in his eyes, it was a colossal violation of protocol, a gesture of disrespect, a sign that I had no regard for my nephew, the Emperor. Prince Liu was fairly close to Prince Jia, and he also never had any time for me. Fortunately, I had Chili sitting next to me as well. I chatted with him a bit, and Chili asked, "Has Prince Dai come to see you these past few days, Imperial Uncle?" "No," I said. It wasn't for nothing that I had doted on Chiton. Since my injury, he had come running to Huai Manor regularly, each time bringing something with him. And he hadn't taken anything away once. Oh, that's a surprise. The things he brought all belonged to his collection of plunder. A jade ornament belonging to a medicine deity that could prevent disease and disaster. A wine gourd that had been used by the famous physician Huo Tuo. Medicine jar given to Emperor Wu of Han by Dongfang Shuo, which would double the efficacy of medicines decocted in it, and so on. Of course, none of them were real, and most of them had been bought with my money, but he gave them to me sincerely, taking them for the real thing, and I did not feel quite gratified and touched. I did feel quite gratified and touched. However, for the last couple of days, I had in fact seen nothing of him. "Yes, from what I hear," said Chili, "there is a traveling merchant from Lingnan planning to sell him a set of items, including the oil lamp Zhong Kongming used while assembling a formation that brought deliverance from battle. The zither he played while executing the empty fort strategy, an oxhorn comb used by Meng Huo's wife, and the cloth that Xiao Shilong used to bundle a duo." My heart dropped. Sounds like quite a bit. "At least from what I hear," Chuli said. "He'll want a few 100,000 liang of silver for it all." I thought my face must have turned green by now. I considered telling Yun Tang and Wang Qin to hurry up with that uprising. "Don't fret too much, Imperial Uncle," Chili consoled me. "Prince Dai has improved a lot lately. He is still only in talks with that traveling merchant. He won't necessarily purchase the items. Bet. It would be a strange thing if he didn't." I said to Chili, "I'm going to be busy at home for the next few days. Why don't you tell him for me that Imperial Chancellor Liu is an expert appraiser, and he should ask the Chancellor to look at those items with him? That will be more reliable." Liu Tongyi was the only one who could keep Chitan from squandering all my money. Fortunately, after what had taken place in the waterside pavilion, if I asked him for help again, it would be a little awkward. Chitan would have to ask him. As I was speaking, Prince Song and Prince Fu also arrived. After delivering greetings, they took their seats. Prince Song stared at the fan in my hand and said, "Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to wave your fan in the hall, Prince Huai?" I shut the fan and returned it to my sleeve. "Thank you for the reminder, my royal brother. My negligence led me to be disrespectful." Prince Zong looked at me again, but said nothing. He was like Prince Jia. He had never liked me. but the reason for his dislike was different. Oh, so regarding these items all relate to semi-fictionalized historical figures and incidents that appear in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Prince Xiang Chengjun was the oldest of my generation of princes, with an honest and forthright disposition. He had served as a deputy general under my father. Though he was older than my father, he had always been respectful towards him as his younger imperial uncle. After my father's death, he looked after me and my mother. Later, when I picked up my little hobby, Prince Zhang was enraged. He would often strike a table while lecturing me. Unfortunately, I refused to mend my ways, and Prince Shang gradually became estranged from Huai Manor. Oh, that's a little sad. I always thought I was a failure, a disgrace to the heroic legacy my father had left for the title of Prince Huai, and that I had proclivities that made others contemptuous of me. Therefore, whenever he saw me, he would put on an expression of intense suffering. When I saw that expression of his, I often felt a trace of guilt. While he suffered, I felt miserable and ill at ease. So unless it was a matter of utmost necessity, Prince Shang and I did not see each other. After I put away my fan, the atmosphere inside the hall stiffened. Fortunately, it was just then that the Emperor arrived. Chizzy's mind was always solemn, his brows slightly knit. It seemed we had come to confer on a subject of grave import. When the other princes and I had all performed our bows and resumed our seats, Chizzy said, "We have come to ask you all here today because of a matter that is of vital concern to the state, but nonetheless difficult to discuss openly in court. We will first deliberate with our imperial uncles." We all listened with respectful attention. Chizzy paused briefly, then continued. Recently, the kingdom of Nahi dispatched an ambassador to court to hold peace negotiations. They have offered us 2 of their cities yearly tribute and eternal vassalages. When these words were spoken, the other princes present all looked pleased, and Prince Zhang and Jia pleasure were especially evident. We had been at war with the kingdom of Nahi for many years. The fighting was already going on when my father was young and continued as new roads became old roads. Nahi's old king had passed away, and his only child, a daughter, had taken the throne. Our nation believed that with a woman in charge, we could win some advantage and immediately attacked in full force. To everyone's surprise, the queen, a girl in her teens, was no softer than a man. Kind of rooting for her, honestly. She joined battle at the head of her own forces and beheaded one of our army generals. From there, the fierce fighting continued. What a badass! Kind of cheering for her a little bit. But her little barbarian kingdom really couldn't support a decades-long war. Since the ceasefire 4 or 5 years ago, she had not attacked the border again. It was said that she had also taken some Han scholars as officials while the kingdom recuperated and rebuilt. Now Nahi had dispatched an ambassador for peace talks and was willing to become a vassal state. This truly was great news. Love a strong woman. Yeah, absolutely do, Chi-Chi Kiki. Absolutely do. But from the solemnity of my imperial nephew's countenance, it appeared that these peace talks weren't going to be so simple. The kingdom of Nahi had made some particular stipulation. Cautiously, I said, "Since your majesty took up the reins of power, your benevolent rule has spread far. There has been peace and plenty throughout the empire. It is only to be expected that a little barbarian kingdom would submit before the prosperity of our empire as well as the wisdom and sagacity of our emperor. For it to bow its head and become a vassal state is only a matter of course, but the barbarians are cunning. Perhaps they have made some improper request? Sure enough, Chizzy solemnly sighed and said, "That is precisely what troubles us. Nahi's ambassador has made a request that we do not know how to respond to." "If it can trouble your majesty, it must be thorny indeed," I said. "In exchange for paying annual tribute, do they wish for gifts of gold and silk from us? Or do they wish to learn some agricultural techniques or to borrow some crop seeds?" None of the barbarian kingdoms were skilled in agriculture, and they had always been envious of our silk goods and dyeing technique. I asked jokingly, "At least Nahi's old king has passed away, and now there is a queen on the throne. King would have wanted a diplomatic marriage with one of our princesses. This queen, at least, won't ask us for a prince." Chizzy raised his eyes, looked straight at me, and nodded slowly. The hall was briefly still. Chizzy sighed, his expression still solemn. "Imperial Uncle, unfortunately, you have it right. Nahi's ambassadors said that their queen is in the prime of her youth, still unwed, and she has always admired the literacy, talents, and beautiful countenances of the empire's men. She requests the king consort to share her throne and rule the kingdom with her to demonstrate the sincerity of their vassalage and peace." My cousins, my royal nephew Chili, and myself were all amazed. Shaking his head with great suffering, Prince Gia said, "The conduct of barbarian women is truly shocking." "I guess for you." Prince Fu also shook his head. "Absurd. Absolutely absurd. Is there not a single man to be found in the whole kingdom of Nahi that the queen can marry?" "Nahi's men are short and brawny," Prince Shang said, furrowing his brow. "There is truly no comparison with the men of our empire." I mean, brawny sounds pretty nice to me. Prince Liu said, "Only princesses have ever gone to make diplomatic marriages. Are we really going to offer up a groom? What a joke that will be to posterity." My cousins were deeply distressed, but I consulted my nephew, the emperor's august countenance, and thought it seemed that he did have some intention of offering the queen a groom. Matters had reached a critical pass. Smoothing the emperor's scales would accomplish two things. First, it would keep him from suspecting the rebellion, and second, once my meritorious deed was accomplished, adding my actions today, would be loyalty on top of loyalty. Would that not be a good thing? So I said, "As I see it, if we did agree to this diplomatic marriage, it would not necessarily be a bad thing." All my cousins looked my way. Prince Zhang frowned and Prince Jia snorted. Only Prince Fu played along. He said, "Why do you say this, Prince Huai?" This request for a marriage alliance shows that the queen must truly admire the men of this empire. She has promised to share her throne. The queen is a barbarian woman. All women in the world are easily swayed. When a woman marries, naturally she follows her husband. If we do send her a groom, the kingdom of Nahi will be as good as within our grasp. When the queen's children are born, they will belong to this empire's bloodline. Then perhaps, without expanding so much as a single soldier, we will be able to annex Nahi. My cousins looked quite unconvinced, but they said nothing to refute me. Chizzy had deliberated in silence for a while, then said, "What you say makes sense, Imperial Uncle. We have also thought along such lines. That is what has led us to hesitate." Prince Fu said, "If we really are to choose someone to go to Nahi as king consort, whom shall it be?" Prince Liu said, This barbarian woman is queen after all. To be suitable for her, he must be a prince's son, or the son of an important courtier. Prince Zhang said. Nahi's queen is in her 20s. Nahi's women are all dark of complexion, though it is said that the queen is not unbeautiful. The princes and princes' sons of this empire either already have settled brides or they are too young. There appears to be no one suitable among them. Prince Fu nodded and said, It seems we must choose among the sons of the important courtiers. Perhaps when he summoned the princes here today, the emperor had planned to have them offer up one of their own sons out of fealty to the nation. But Prince Zhang and the others had many years of experience. They were crafty politicians. Prince Zhang's statement had taken all their sons out of the running. Prince Fu said, I am not well acquainted with the sons of the important courtiers. Prince Huai and my royal nephew Chili ought to be more familiar with them. His gaze swept over me and Chili, becoming pregnant with meaning as it reached me. Chili was unwed. As deliberations had gone on about the choice of groom, he hadn't made a sound as he sat beside me. He must have been secretly worried. Now that Prince Zhang had made certain of his safety, he was immediately energized. Smiling, he said, To pick the best from among the sons of the important courtiers, little thought needs to be given. The most common saying in the capital is, If you speak of men beyond compare, look no further than Chancellor Liu and Secretary Yun. Chancellor Liu, Liu Tongyi, Secretary Yun, Yun Yu. Why is it always you two? Chili added, Chancellor Liu is a pillar of this court. Of course he isn't an option. The hall went silent. Finally, I could not resist saying, Yun Yu is not suitable either. We must look elsewhere for a candidate. Prince Zhang, Prince Jia, Prince Fu, Prince Liu, even Cheesy looked my way. Cheesy raised his eyebrows and said, Oh? Yun Yu is the perfect choice from the standpoint of background, appearance, and erudition. Why not him? There are a few unsuitable points, I said. First, Yun Yu is sharp-tongued and unconventional. Our choice of king consort ought to be a generous person with a gentle temperament who will be able to sway the queen. Second, Yun Yu is a little romantic. Is the queen a woman who can tolerate sharing her husband? We want a devoted gentleman. Third, Yun Yu is Yun Tang's son. That item alone merits careful consideration. Chizzy stared at me, apparently deep in thought. Prince Jia said with a sneer, The points of opposition Prince Huai has brought up contradict each other. You say that Yun Tang's son is romantic. Isn't a romantic perfect for pleasing a woman? He can be tender, and in doing so sway the princess. There is a hint in your third point, but to my knowledge, Prince Huai has always been close to the Yun family and often fraternizes with their son of theirs in particular. It does give one cause to consider. I have no answer when my royal brother Prince Jia puts it that way. I am only doing my utmost to perform my duties as a subject, speaking on the topic at hand. Everything will be up to His Majesty to decide. Look loyally at the throne. Oh, gosh. Chizzy stood inside again. There is another thing that we have not spoken of, and have not meant to speak of. The ambassador of the kingdom of Nahi, in requesting this marriage, named their choice. Once again, the princes, Chili, and myself were all surprised. Chizzy looked at me and put his hands behind his back. The ambassador said that the queen likes slightly older men, especially those with self-possession, consideration, and an understanding of pleasure. For instance, Chizzy stared directly at me. I suddenly had a bad feeling. For instance, someone like Prince Huai. Why is it always you three? Forget you two, you three. I'll pull a McGonagall on your butts. Why is it always you three? Make me crazy. You can't catch a break. The hall was once again silent. I said seriously, Your Majesty, I am a cut sleeve. Self-possession, consideration, and an understanding of pleasure were, in fact, especially notable among my numerous charms. I am amazed that the Queen, far away in a foreign land, would have got wind of such things. It is truly unfortunate that my interests would never change. Chizzy continued to gaze at me without any expression. The ambassador said that the Queen is aware of this, but it is her belief that our empire's women are not good enough, which has driven His Highness Prince Huai to such predilections in spite of himself. She believes that she can make His Highness Prince Huai cease to be a cut sleeve. Didn't he like women before? Like, isn't he bi? Like, I thought he was bi. So had word of my exploits really spread so far? Chizzy was still staring at me. He continued. The ambassador has also informed us that the Queen wanted to pass on a message to His Highness Prince Huai at all costs. The Queen wishes to ask Prince Huai, do you still recall that drizzly afternoon and the vow we made on the little bridge outside the city walls? The hall fell even more silent. The meaningful looks and meaningful expressions left me perplexed. With a sigh, Chizzy asked, Imperial Uncle, we wish to ask, how could the Queen of Nahi make a vow with you on a drizzly afternoon on a small bridge outside the city walls? With infinite sincerity, I said, Your Majesty, I truly am a cut sleeve. I have never been outside our borders, nor have I ever gone near the kingdom of Nahi. Chizzy sighed at great length. Then was it in a dream that the Queen met you on a bridge to make a vow in the drizzle? I have always considered myself a romantic, but not inconstant person. To the present, I had never made a vow with anyone, never mind that this foreign Queen of Nahi was all the way in the ends of the earth. Even before I was a cut sleeve, could have had no connection with her. So I was right. He has been with women. Which, I mean, it doesn't guarantee he's bi, but it was like, wait, I swear at the beginning he was like, yeah, initially I was like really into women and then found out about dudes and it was like, oh yeah. Which I guess doesn't necessarily make him bi. I don't know. I'm not gonna label it. He is who he is. If he says he's a cut sleeve, he's a cut sleeve. It's whatever. I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to assume. I set forth my views earnestly, carefully analyzing every word. If this stuck, it would be no joke. There was every chance it would be considered collusion with an enemy nation. I talked and Chizzy listened. I didn't know whether he believed me. Chili put in a word for me. Despite what the ambassador has said, Imperial Uncle may not have made such a vow. Perhaps the Queen wishes to sow discord sow discord between your majesty and the Imperial Uncle, or perhaps someone else with a hidden agenda impersonated Imperial Uncle. I wonder whether the ambassadors said what the Prince Huai, whom the Queen swore the oath with, looked like. Chizzy put his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "We have not yet asked. We wished first to ask Imperial Uncle about it." Prince Fu said, "Why not send someone to ask the ambassador of Nahi whether the Queen described Prince Huai's appearance to her? And if she did, send a number of men of similar age to appear before him along with Prince Huai, so that he can identify him. Wouldn't it be clear then?" Prince Zhang and Prince Liu thought this was an excellent idea. Only Prince Jia objected. "There are so many ways of sowing discord. This barbarian woman occupies the lofty position of queen. She has no need to do this at the cost of her honor. There must be some truth in it. The ambassador has not seen the man who made the vow with the queen. Even if he has heard a description, it must have been vague. We do not know how many years have passed since the vow was made. A man's appearance can change given enough time. Even if the queen herself came, it would probably take even her some time to recognize him. How could the ambassador recognize him at all?" "I'm a fairly recognizable person," I said. "If someone who has seen me describes my distinctive traits, it should be easy enough to know me. Whether it does any good or not, let us ask. Otherwise, if I am truly to become her groom for the sake of the court, as soon as the Queen of Nahi takes one look and sees I am the wrong man, wouldn't that be a setback for both our lives?" Next to me, Chili says with a smile, "Imperial Uncle is agitated. He even talks of becoming her groom. I'm afraid if your majesty doesn't agree, Imperial Uncle's resentment at this injustice will be irrepressible." Chizzy knit his brow and looked at me. For a moment he said, "Very well. This concerns diplomatic ties between our two nations. It is no small matter. Let us do as Chili said and send someone to ask the Nahi ambassador." About half a shichen later, the eunuch who had been sent to ask returned and reported. "The Nahi ambassador says the queen not only described His Highness Prince Huai's appearance, she also painted a portrait of Prince Huai that hangs in her chambers. He has seen it. If Prince Huai stands before him, he is likely to recognize His Highness." Once again, everyone in the hall looked my way, my nephew the Emperor included. Prince Fu said, "This barbarian woman really is infatuated." "Only we do not know who the target of her infatuation is," I added. Chizzy glanced at me again, but said nothing. So I was to go parade myself before the Nahi ambassador so he could identify me. "Hope you change clothes first, because you're probably going to be the best dressed one out of the bunch." The identification was nothing like having a victim point to a criminal in the Ministry of Justice's courtroom. Had to be a little more tactful, more circuitous, more in keeping with the dictates of etiquette. Therefore, quite a lot of bother went into advanced preparations for this identification. The Ministry of Rights took the lead. On the Emperor's order, a small banquet was arranged in the Imperial Gardens to entertain the ambassador, and I and a set of slightly older Imperial kinsmen of the younger generation, all close to me in age, were invited to attend. I went home to change into casual clothes. When I returned to the palace, I first made my way to a small hut to join my royal nephews, then together we proceeded to the Imperial Gardens. The Nahi ambassador was in his 40s or 50s, with dark skin and a turban wound around his head. The two sides of his mustache turned up. Perhaps it had been deliberately shaped this way with paste. In all, he had a strong air of foreignness. He stared intently as my royal nephews and I approached. When we had taken our seats, he babbled something into the ear of the Han attendant beside him. The attendant spoke towards the head of the banquet. Reporting to your majesty, Lord Alunan says that these princes and princes' sons are unfamiliar to him. That person is not among them. When I heard this, I instantly felt as if the clouds had parted and the sky had cleared. Chizzy sat upright on his throne at the head of the banquet. Smiling, he said, "The one in the purple robes there is our Imperial Uncle, Prince Huai." The Han attendant immediately whispered into the ear of the ambassador, who abruptly sat up straight and stared at me, then babbled a great deal of things to the Han attendant, who reported, "Your Majesty, Lord Alunan says that it absolutely cannot be Prince Huai. The Prince Huai the Queen admires is well built and steady, with a step as light as if he had wings. He has a square face. He is a man of unwavering determination and great thoughtfulness." Ambassador Alunan dipped his finger in wine and drew a few strokes on the table, then babbled something else. The Han attendant continued, "Lord Alunan is an accomplished artist. He can recreate the portrait painted by the Queen. That will tell your Majesty who this man is." Why hadn't he said so earlier instead of putting me through all this hassle? I've been caught up in an imperial banquet before he finally got around to spitting out something so important. Since we're doing the trend of why is it always you three, I'm guessing it's either going to be Yoon Yu or Chancellor Lee. Chancellor Liu. I didn't even bother getting angry. I only wanted to see what man had gotten the idea into his head to carry on with the Queen under my name. Now that I was no longer implicated, while everyone else accepted it, Prince Jia alone looked a little disappointed. As to just who the Prince Huai that the Queen had taken a liking to was, everyone present was eager to learn. Chizzy immediately ordered brush, ink, paper, and inkstone to be brought. Foreigners did admire our midland culture. While Ambassador Elunan could hardly speak a word of our language, he was very familiar with the inks and brushes of our empire. He rolled up his sleeves, took up the brush, and wielded it. 1 mark later, he had drawn a portrait on the paper. 2 eunuchs came forward bearing the drawing. I looked at it intently. The man portrayed had a square face, thick eyebrows, and a brief, sparse mustache. He did look a steady fellow. I thought it was someone I knew. He was certainly very familiar. "We do not seem to have seen this man," said Chizzy. "Indeed, he looks nothing like Chengjun." Prince Xiang, Prince Jia, Prince Fu, and Prince Liu all took turns saying that they had never seen him, that he didn't look like me. Only Li frowned and said, "I do think I've seen this man somewhere." Put a hand to his temple. Think, I think it's. I only saw him once or twice, but I think he belongs to Huai Manor." I had it by now. I stood and acknowledged your majesty. "Your Majesty, Prince Shou's heir is correct. The face in this portrait looks a great deal like my sedan carrier, Han Si." Someone really wants to fuck with this dude. This business of the Queen of Nahi ultimately turned into a farce. Chizzy sent to Huai Manor to have Han Si brought into his presence. Han Si was also bewildered. All he did was tremble in Jinlua Hall, claiming that he had been falsely accused as tears coursed down his cheeks. Finally, we verified the facts with the Nahi ambassador and again asked when this had taken place. At last, we began to have a clear idea of the sequence of events. 3 or 4 years ago, just after the ceasefire between our two nations, the Queen had traveled in disguise with a merchant caravan and snuck into our capital. On a certain day, I had gone to a brothel seeking pleasure, and Han Si and my other servants were waiting for me at the gate when they happened to run into the Queen. The boldness of foreign women was indeed beyond imagining. The queen believed that a brothel of male prostitutes was operating specifically for women to visit, and she wanted to go in and get acquainted. Hansi and the others, concerned that if it came to mischief my mood would be dampened, went to stop her. Among them, Hansi was the most even-tempered. He spoke words of comfort and advised the others not to make trouble for a woman. The queen therefore became smitten with him. It was raining, and the queen did not know the way. She had been separated from her party and was wandering back and forth along the street. Hansi couldn't bear to see this, so he bought an umbrella by the road and took her to the place outside the city walls where she had arranged to meet her attendants. The queen said to Hansi, "Sentiments have passed between us today. I promise I will come back for you. I will not let you down." Hansi thought the sentiment was gratitude, and that this was only a promise to return the favor, because in this empire, no woman would say such a thing to a man. But it was indeed an oath, and the queen had not gone back on it. She had come for her king consort. Hansi wept and solemnly swore that he had told the queen his name was Hansi, that he was a sedan carrier, but because my frequent brothels of male prostitutes was in glorious business, he had not dared to reveal what household he belonged to. The ambassador said that the man who had made a vow with the queen had indeed called himself Hansi. The queen had thought he couldn't be an ordinary man. She had memorized the design on my sedan and learned through her investigations that it was Prince Huai's, so she took Hansi to be me. During the course of this investigation, Hansi and the Nahi ambassador were in separate rooms. This left absolutely no possibilities of collusion, yet their stories coincided on each point. Clearly, this was the truth. For a sedan carrier like Hansi to be swept up in such a romance was more splendid than any legendary tale. Only, I had been dragged in and made to sweat as well. After the matter had mostly elucidated, Chizzy summoned me to the Imperial study and firmly said some words of consolation. "This Queen of Nahi business is truly bizarre. There really was no need for you to go through all that." "It's all right," I said. "Though at the time I really was frightened out of my wits. I worried your majesty would send me to be a groom in a foreign land." Smiling, Chizzy said, "Didn't we tell you that we wouldn't let a new princess cross your threshold? Why do you distrust us so, Chengjun?" "Of course I would not dare," I said at once. "But your majesty only said that you would not let a princess cross my threshold. You said nothing about letting me cross anyone else's. That is why I felt some concern at the time." Chizzy looked at me intently, then smiled and strolled a few paces away. "This isn't over yet. We do not know whether the Queen of Nahi will still want her beloved Prince Huai as her king consort when she learns he is actually a sedan carrier. If she does, we will have to give Hansi a title to at least give the affair some dignity. Your residence is truly full of talented individuals, Imperial Uncle. Wonderful things are always happening." Yeah, wonderful to who? "This is a blessing bestowed upon Hansi by heaven. What one hears of as being written in the book of fate. It has nothing to do with me." Chizzy stopped in his tracks. "But you did get dragged into it in the end, and it has been very stressful for you. The injury to your arm has yet to heal. Go home and rest." I knelt and touched my forehead to the floor. "I will take my leave. Please, do not overexert yourself either, your majesty." Above my head, Chizzy's voice said, "We are very gratified that you are thinking of us, Imperial Uncle." I left the Imperial study and walked slowly towards the palace gate. A sedan passed by. I looked up and saw a familiar dab of dark blue. I couldn't help but feel a stirring in my heart. I stood still, saluted, and said with a smile, "Chancellor Liu, what a coincidence." He raised his sleeves and bowed in my direction, just as usual, politely perfect. "Your Highness, Prince Huai." And I said politely to him, "I see you are on the way in. Do you have official business?" The corners of his lips rose. "Your Highness, Prince Huai is on the way out. It appears your important work is finished." I laughed and said, "I have never done anything of great import." The smile still lingered on his lips. "I have heard that there is a king consort in your Highness's home." Was this a joke? How could he still joke with me after leaving the waterside pavilion that day? I would have expected him to want to put as much distance as possible between us. Was it mockery? I knew he wasn't the kind of person who took pleasure at the expense of others. Then it was mere politeness. To me, it was a statement I could take as a joke to console myself. Therefore, I said, "Yes, another notable personage has emerged at Huai Manor. It seems even more full of talented individuals." Liu Tongyi looked at me with his clear eyes. I said, "Ooh, getting tired. You have important work to do. I won't hold you up. I bid you farewell." He raised his sleeves and calmly said farewell. I continued on my way to the palace gate. It was dusk, the sky once again half filled with ruddy clouds. Ruddy clouds. Han Si did not want to be a groom. I had thought that the matter of the king consort had come to a temporary close, so when I returned from the palace, I brooded a while on my sorrows, thinking of my Rancy, then took a nap. When I rose after dark, as soon as I sat down in the small hall, a dark figure burst into the room and prostrated itself, sobbing. "Your Highness, please take into consideration the slowly one's many years of service. Don't make me go to that foreign land. I have an old mother and father at home, young brothers and sisters. If I go, they won't survive. Please be merciful, Your Highness." Hansi did have some brains. He knew well enough how awesome my nephew the Emperor was and hadn't dared to cry in the palace. Instead, he had chosen to come home and cry to me. "It isn't a question of my mercy," I said. "Your marriage to the queen was fixed by heaven. It is a fated match. In a few days, His Majesty will ennoble you, and the court will support your parents and siblings. There's no need for you to worry. All of us must make sacrifices for the nation and the people. There are so many who can't even imagine marrying the Queen of Nahi and sharing the throne. Why do you want to avoid it?" Hansi kept sobbing and sniffling. I had never seen a tall, well-grown man cry like this. Hansi said he was scared of the foreigners. He had heard they all ate raw meat and drank fresh blood and didn't use salt in their cooking. I think it's hilarious that he's, like, the salt mention. Like, I get it. Salt is life. But the fact that that goes right next to drinking blood and eating raw meat, a little funny. He said that his mother had always taught him that a true man could never marry into his wife's home. To reason with him, try to enlighten him. The question of marrying into the wife's home, it mattered a great deal what that home was. If he married the queen now, went to be her king consort, and made peace at the border, the annals of history would certainly record the greatness of his deeds. Hansi remained unwilling. He said that it was indecent conduct to give up your own family name. Hansi was his nickname, and his full name was Han Chuan Bao. If he married that foreign queen, he would certainly have to take her family name, turning him into a foreigner. He couldn't stand that. I seem to recall that the Queen of Nahi's family name was Hihinalu. If Hansi married her, then presumably he would be called Hihinalu. Chuan Bao or Chuan Bao Hihinalu. I thought that wasn't a bad name. Hence he was adamant. I'd rather die than agree. The racket he made gave me a pounding headache. I was no master of talking people around, and in this case, only gentle persuasion would work. I couldn't scare him, and we were day by day getting closer to the start of the great undertaking. If this continued unsettled, would I be able to take part in the rebellion? Hansi went on making his ruckus half the night, till I finally convinced him to go to bed. I ate only half a pitiful bowl of thin porridge before going to bed myself. The next day I was still asleep in bed at mid-morning when Chief Steward Chiao came to report that Supervisor Yoon had come. I had been expecting him today. I rose. Chief Steward Chiao said, Supervisor Yoon said he was only stopping by for a visit. When he heard your highness had not yet risen, he informed me that he would bid farewell for the moment and asked that you be notified. He simply wanted your highness to know he had stopped by. Go ask Supervisor Yoon to wait a bit, I said. I'm going right now. By the time I was dressed and washed, Chief Steward Chiao came again to report that Supervisor Yoon had already left. Yoon Yu had never been impatient before, leaving just like that. I guess he must have had something important to say and thought Huai Manor wasn't the right place to say it. After breakfast, I had an invitation sent to the Yoon residence, inviting him to eat at Yuhua Pavilion. Oh my gosh, this still looks like a lot. Okay. Not long after the note reached the Yoon residence and before I could dispatch someone to reserve a place at Yuhua Pavilion, an announcement came that Supervisor Yoon had come. I was puzzled. What was all this coming and going about? Yoon Yu entered the room and sat. Before I could ask, he said, Doesn't your highness think Yuhua Pavilion is common? Why would you invite me there? You like that place, Supervisor Yoon, don't you? I said. When inviting someone to a meal, naturally I have to consult their preferences. Yoon Yu smiled. It is clear your highness is more accustomed to being invited than doing the inviting. Spots at Yuhua Pavilion must be reserved in advance. If you reserve them on the day of like this, all the good courtyards will be long gone. It will be hard to have decent food prepared. I was worried that this would ruin your highness's fun, so I simply came to visit again. No wonder, I said. You left in such a hurry today, Supervisor Yoon, that I thought it must be because you preferred Yuhua Pavilion to Huai Manor. So I set out an invitation at once. Holding his teacup, Yoon Yu said with feigned helplessness, How fortunate that I have always been good at keeping my seat, that I often come here, that I am not easily embarrassed. Otherwise, with your highness speaking so meaningfully, I might have thought you wanted to throw me out. Raised my hand. Don't. I might throw out any other guest, but I would not dare to throw you out. Supervisor Yoon, this morning I rushed to get out of bed and asked to have you detained, but you still must have thought I was remiss and slipped away so quickly. I wanted to invite you to Yuhua Pavilion by way of apology. Coming here to explain yourself is unusually considerate of you. Sighing, Yoon Yu said, Truly, I merit the harshest punishments. This morning I disturbed your highness's rest and withdrew with all sincerity. It is precisely then when disaster arose. Okay, guys. I'm going to find a good spot to end this because I just realized, I am fading fast. And, there's still like almost 50 pages in this. So like we might do like a 0.5 thing. Because like I am falling asleep. Ay. I also sighed and said, "Forget it. I'm scared of you." It's not my first time saying that. Holding the lid of his cup, Yunyu slowly agitated the leaves, floating in his tea. Fair enough. Is it because of this that your highness told his majesty that there were lurking concerns about me being the groom in a marriage alliance, and I was not an ideal candidate? These words pricked my heart. It seemed that my saying Yunyu would not be an appropriate match, as Yu Tang's son had already been repeated. At the time, I had been afraid lest Yunyu become a candidate for king consort. Yunyu could be relentless, and he could endure. If it really had fallen to him, I was afraid he would have agreed without demur. A renewal of hostilities at the border, coinciding with the domestic rebellion, would have settled everything. I believed that I could handle Yun Tang and Wang Chen at present. However, if the kingdom of Nahi was added to the mix, Chizi's throne really would be in danger. Whatever happened, I could not let Yunyu become the king consort. I rubbed my temples. I hope you don't blame me for blighting your marriage prospects. Yunyu still wore a smile. Your Highness shielded me before His Majesty. I ought to be grateful. My reputation, my father's, are all out in the open. People are always talking about us. It means nothing for your Highness to use that as a reason. Thanks, Peacock Pages. Yeah, I'm fading. Next time maybe I'll have an energy drink before I start, but yeah. To judge from his expression, it truly was smooth sailing. I sensed no ill feeling. Just as long as you don't blame me for meddling, I said. Yuhua Pavilion is out, but there is a tranquil spot in this residence that I have never invited you to, Supervisor Yun. It's called the Waterside Pavilion. Why not drink to our heart's content there today? I took Yun Yu onto the floating bridge to the Waterside Pavilion. Recalling how cautious I had been the day I had taken Ronsi this way, I felt a little ridiculous. Yun Yu stood on the walkway looking out at the broad lake shore. He tapped the folding fan in his hand. This is a very elegant waterside pavilion your highness has. I didn't know that there was such a place in the final courtyard. Is this where your highness hides his beauties? I turned the stone crane, withdrawing the floating walkway connected to the shore. Yun Yu was impressed. He added, Must have guessed wrong. With this floating bridge withdrawn, it is more like a water prison. Could it be that your highness was locked up here to study by the former Prince Huai? You truly are amazing, I said. You've guessed it. It seemed your talents are wasted working at the Imperial Censorate rather than the Ministry of Justice. Yun Yu laughed softly. Here and now, with this person, the scene was a world apart from the day with Rancy. Although the scenery was unchanged, with someone else, my mood was different as well. I watched Yun Yu contentedly gazing at the heart of the lake, and the thoughts I had kept suppressed in my heart once again stirred. I think we'll finish like whatever's going on with Yun Yu in here, and then that's where we'll end it. Yun Yu and I sat by the railing in the lightest and most spacious parts of the waterside pavilion, in rattan chairs with a small square table with a jar of good wine and a few exquisite cold dishes. Eyes slightly narrowed, Yun Yu said. This waterside pavilion is a good place to cool off in summer, but in winter it must be a little cold. My father used to always throw me in here to study in the depths of winter. The place was like an ice house. A dozen burning braziers didn't help. My teeth were chattering, and I still had to keep reading books on warcraft. Though it turned out all right. Later, he decided I was hopeless and my suffering was at an end. Yunyu lifted his cup and looked intently at me. When your highness wears the imperial robes in the future and rules the empire, former Prince Huai will certainly be glad in the underworld. Glad? I couldn't hold back a laugh. I'll be lucky if the old man doesn't jump out of his coffin and come hack me to pieces. All my father ever wanted was to serve the emperor, to be loyal to the nation and the people. But he bore the charge of plotting rebellion in secret. That is the fate of the so-called loyal courtier. Poured a cup of wine and raised it as well, then rotated it twice. It is precisely because of this that I have seen through the facade. What is loyalty? What is treachery? The world shouldn't belong to one man forever. Oh, I agree with that statement. Since I already bear the charge of infamy, why not substantiate it? The honest officials who curse me today will have to kneel before me and call me Majesty, all the same when I sit upon the throne. As for my father, if he can see me from the underworld, he will also see how his so-called hopeless case commands the empire. The speech I delivered to the lake, facing into the wind. It was hot-blooded, impassioned. The Yun and Wang families were full of cunning. I did not know what Yunyu was thinking of testing me like this, but that what I said ought to have settled my mind, his mind, not my mind. Yunyu said, "Your Highness is unusually vocal about your convictions today." "Perhaps because the designated day is close at hand," I said calmly. "I can't hold back." Yunyu smiled. "Nor can my father and I. We want to see your Highness take the throne, but this period is crucial for our arrangements. Though we do not want to hold back, still we must." I took the opportunity to say, "The other day when you told me I must pay attention when I go to court, I wonder, what did you want me to pay attention to?" Yunyu sipped his wine, then said, "My father recently received word that Prince Jia seemed to have taken on some military authority. I believe some divisions in the north are now in his hand. I wonder whether your Highness discerned anything in his manner at the banquet of 6 princes." No wonder Prince Jia's spine had been so much stiffer than usual this time in court, I said. "The old goose Prince Jia is ready to spread his wings and laugh proudly in the face of the frost. He has been dormant for so long, I wonder whether he still remembers what to do with those soldiers now that they are under his command." Yunyu looked up at me and put down his empty cup. "In the present situation, our plans must be laid with precision. We must let nothing slip. Everything must be carefully plotted." Faint weariness made its way into his expression. Had there been no rebellion and no plot, had the whole world been like this light and spacious waterside pavilion, what happiness and satisfaction would it have been to sit across from each other like this, drinking wine and appreciating the scenery of the lake? But the circumstances could not be changed at will. Had there been no rebellion, no plot, how could Yunyu have grown close to me? It was even more impossible that he would be sitting across from me like this, drinking wine, looking out at the lake, and enjoying the breeze. I looked at Yunyu and spoke the words that I had been keeping suppressed in my heart. "Apparently this is like the confession pavilion. There is a piece of advice I have been meaning to give you, but I thought that you would not agree, so I have never said anything. But now we are so close and the situation is so fraught, I think that this might well be a critical piece, so I will say it." Yunyu looked at me holding his cup. I said, "Sui, withdraw from this revolt. Do not take part." Oh, he did it. Yunyu was just lifting his cup to moisten his lips. Hearing this, he instantly looked as if he had choked. Your Highness, why would you say such a thing? I met his eyes and said, there is truly no saying whether this attempt will succeed. Wang Qin, your father, and I have put all we have into this effort. Keeping back a hidden piece is planning for the future. Yunyu looked at me wordlessly. I continued. There is a valley in a certain place in Shinan. Although not as prosperous and comfortable as Jiangnan, there is nonetheless picturesque and is fully equipped. It's about a half-month's travel from the capital. I said to Yunyu that when he left Huai Manor today, he could encounter assassin along the way. Once he was out of danger, he would need to recover in peaceful surroundings. He would head to the Yun family's villa in Jiangnan. He would break his journey in Shuzhou, stay one night, then continue on his way the next day. Yunyu was no longer looking at me, but at the wine cup in his hand. He only remarked that my arrangements were very suitable. I have pondered this at length, I said. You are the most suitable for this. You have erudition, resourcefulness, courage, and insight, and moreover, you are young, with a long future ahead of you. I spoke from the bottom of my heart. It was proper for Yun Tang and Wang Qin to be executed, but towards Yunyu, I had always felt pity and even guilt. Yunyu was a genius. Chizi needed honest and benevolent courtiers like Liu Tang, Yi, and his court, but he also needed keen ones such as Yunyu. Apart from having occasional exploratory conversations on the subject of rebellion with me on his father's orders, Yunyu put down his wine cup again. Your Highness, do you say these things to me in jest or in earnest? He laughed, stood, and went to the railing. The arrow is on the string, and perhaps the Emperor already has his eyes fixed on us. Here and now, your Highness would still speak of secret. It's too late. It's not too late, I said. I speak of it to you because I am capable of following through. The valley was a line of retreat I had arranged for myself. Everything else aside, I did carry the reputation of the court's greatest malignant tumor. It was well within my power to deliver Yunyu. If we succeed and I ascend the throne, I would immediately summon you back to the capital. If we fail, you will stay there. If you wish to take revenge, you can take revenge. If you wish to change your name and remain, you can remain. At least one of us will survive. Once Yun Tang and Wang Qin had been executed, if Yunyu had a change of heart, my nephew the Emperor would likely be willing to overlook past transgressions. It would be best if he allowed Yunyu to return to court as an official, but I knew that this was not a likely outcome. Let Yunyu place himself outside of all this and go on living under a different name, or let him come back to seek revenge against me and stab me to death this time. I would feel better anyway, not like now, when every time I look at him, I feel burdened. At the railing, Yunyu turned, then suddenly knelt. I was startled and quickly rose to lift him to his feet, but it was as if he had been nailed down. None of my efforts could get him to stand. So your Highness is not joking. There is no need for your Highness to be so tactful. I understand. Your Highness Prince Huai has never fully trusted my father and me. When I made the decision to follow your Highness, I was prepared to die. This is my purpose. But if your Highness cannot truly trust my father and wishes to use me as a hostage, then I will comply. Only, Yunyu looked up, his eyes and his expression perfectly calm. If you send me to Sinan now, it will certainly draw suspicion from the palace. Better you use drugs to secure me. Your residence ought to be supplied with both slow poisons and drugs to subdue. There are also some bottles prepared at my home. I had been bending down to lift Yu to his feet, but when I heard this speech, I nearly sat on the ground myself. He might as well have stabbed me, I thought. When it came down to it, all I could just say was, just pretend I never said anything. What I actually wanted to say was, so that's the kind of person you see in this. Or else, how could I suspect you like this? But I lacked the self-assurance to say that. I had been plotting against Yunyu's life all this time. I was in no position to say anything of the sort. Could only sigh. I spoke as if bargaining with him, almost begging him. Pretend I'd never said anything and stand up now, all right? Yunyu went on kneeling, forcing me to go on. Supervisor Yoon, if I really did suspect you, how could I have treated you like... Yunyu gave a bitter laugh. I've already reflected on my own actions. Perhaps I have always been too flippant in front of your highness. That day at Yuhua Pavilion, I nearly became a seducer. When I was so shameless, how must your highness have seen me? My efforts to lift Yunyu to his feet, I had already ended up sitting on the ground. I didn't know what to say. I struggled and struggled again, but all I could think of was, Suiya, even to forestall you, you can't hold yourself so cheap. Finally, Yunyu raised his head and looked at me. I said to him, bargaining again, pretend I never said anything. Get up, all right? Still, Yunyu did not move. Finally, I felt pushed to say something sincere. As for Yuhua Pavilion, I know you only acted like that because you had something on your mind. You were drunk. My sole concern was only afraid of taking it for the truth. Yunyu's sleeves had been clutched in my hands. Now, I let go and found that my palms had been sweating. Sueya, I'll be honest. In all this time, you're the only person who has not stood up on too many ceremony with me, who's been close to me. The princess, the people I've liked, even Chu Shun, none of them have truly cared about me. Of course, Chancellor Liu is even more impossible. Reality, all I asked for was someone to truly care about me, and who would take care of me in turn, someone to chat with, to drink tea with, someone to talk to day in and day out, never tiring of it. That was all. But if that person was Yunyu, then the outlook was grim. After that day at Yuhua Pavilion, some things had occurred to me, but could never be. Even if they existed, I could not acknowledge them. It's only that, at a time like this, talking about these things can do no good, only harm, I said. Hang on. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. Sueya, you know that I am a cut sleeve. If I were to fall in love with you, there would be trouble. Yunyu looked at me. After a long moment, he raised his eyebrows. There certainly would be trouble. Your Highness loves Chancellor Liu. How could you fall for me? Your Highness certainly wouldn't be so fickle. As he spoke, he finally got to his feet. I breathed a sigh of relief and stood as well. Sueya. Yunyu sighed. Please do not worry, Your Highness. What happened at Yuhua Pavilion will not happen again. What is in my heart will remain there. I will not speak of it. I said, Sueya. Yunyu looked at me, then suddenly smiled. I'm joking. That time at Yuhua Pavilion, I really did have something on my mind. I was drunk. If I'd really had any thought of doing something supposing Your Highness ascended the throne, I would have become a courtesan who resorts to seduction. That isn't a very good reputation. Yours isn't that great right now either. However shameless I may be, it would still be a little too much to bear. I'd rather go without." He smiled again. "We will leave it at that today." "There are some things your highness and I will both pretend never happened. I wish to take my leave." I watched him bow. I left the waterside pavilion with him, walked across the floating walkway to the shore. Yunyu did not speak again, and I could say nothing. Yunyu left as soon as we reached the shore. He didn't stay an extra moment. When he was gone, I returned to my room and sat. It took me a long time to recover. Could say I really was afraid of Yunyu. All that time, he had been stabbing my heart, each blow stronger than the last. I thought he must have known all along, known that I actually loved him. What? Where did that come from? Liu Tongyi was a dream of rippling moonlight and amid the fragrance of osmanthus flowers. It was those lines of poetry spoken in the waterside pavilion that had awakened me from the dream, made me understand the tangible good in front of me. Though I did not wish to dwell on what had taken place at Yuhua Pavilion, I had no choice but to dwell on it. Connecting it with all that had come before, there was absolutely no reason for Yunyu to act that way unless he had fallen for me. This was a rather bold thought. At my age, I shouldn't have been imagining things like a fresh-faced youth. But in spite of myself, I indulged in imagination. Taking into account Yunyu's behavior lately, my thoughts became increasingly tangible. For some reason, with these thoughts, I felt an inexplicable joy. But after the joy came grief. The rebellion was at hand. When this was over, what would happen to me and what would happen to Yunyu? No matter what, there could be no good outcome. It was absolutely unjust of me to have plotted against Yunyu. Perhaps this was my punishment. But why should Yunyu share in it? So on this score, I did not plan to admit defeat. Yeah, okay. While I was languishing in my bedroom, a messenger came from the palace to say that my nephew the Emperor had cause to summon me. The Emperor's word was absolute. I had no choice but to change into court dress and hasten to the palace. My nephew the Emperor's brow was slightly furrowed. There was a careworn look on his face. He looked at me and asked, "Why do you look so frustrated, Imperial Uncle? Is there something on your mind?" I quickly said that it was nothing, just that Hansi didn't know what was good for him and refused to marry the queen, and I was attempting to enlighten him. "Oh, it's about Hansi," said Chizzy. "We thought that he might not be willing to be a king consort. It's no matter if you are not skilled in enlightening others, Imperial Uncle. Yunyu often goes to your residence. It's no matter if you are not skilled in enlightening others, Imperial Uncle. Yunyu often goes to your residence, so why not let him talk some sense into Hansi?" My heart skipped. I'm afraid that neither is Supervisor Yun especially skilled in these matters. Chizzy raised a hand and said, "Forget it. We have no interest in wrangling over the king consort question today. If Yunyu is not skilled in enlightening others, then we will send Chancellor Liu, who is most excellent at it, to your residence." He really did call over a eunuch and told him to transmit a decree sending Liu Tongyi to Huai Manor for a chat with Hansi. I watched the eunuch leave to obey this order in the dark about my nephew, the Emperor's plans. Chizzy circled back to the throne and sat, and had a chair brought up beside him. With a smile that showed his teeth, he said, All right, Chancellor Liu will go to your residence and have a chat with Hansi, and you will stay here and keep us company, Imperial Uncle. We have nothing serious at hand, only something on our mind that we would like to talk over with someone. Another half a tooth showed. Sit, Imperial Uncle. Feeling vigilant, I thanked him for his benevolence and sat. Then Chizzy said, We have been hesitating on the question of a particular person. We do not know the right way to treat him. Should we tackle him or just let him be? Anyone who can make your majesty hesitate must be troublesome indeed. You are perfectly correct, Imperial Uncle. That person, we have never been able to understand him. He has always weighed on our hearts, leaving us no peace of mind, day or night. I said at once, Your Majesty, affairs of state may be pressing, but you ought to be more mindful of your health. You are always so solicitous towards us, Imperial Uncle. I don't know why I had trouble with that word. Probably because I'm tired. Chizzy said, You have been ever since we were little. Whatever we wanted, you were always sure to guess. Your Majesty has done me the kindness of calling me uncle, I said. Though I am not a full uncle, I must still live up to the title. My nephew, the Emperor, seemed greatly affected by this. A great change came over his eyes and his expression as he looked at me. Afterward, he said many things to me, mostly concerning memories of his childhood. He spoke of going to play at Huai Manor, spoke of the youthful exploits of Prince Dai and the others. It was not until night had fallen that I was able to take my leave. Before he left, Chizzy said, Imperial Uncle, we will remember what you have said today. I carried these words back home with me. Perhaps Chizzy already knew about the rebellion. Maybe the person Chizzy had spoken of hesitating was about me. Back at the manor, I was surprised to see the Imperial Chancellor sit down. Why? You were there when he ordered him to go. So Liu Tongyi had yet succeeded in enlightening Hansi. Oh, okay, that's why. I went around to the corner courtyard to assess the situation and met Liu Tongyi coming from the other direction, having just finished his counseling. In the lamplight, Liu Tongyi looked exhausted. It was clear he had been found persuading Hansi very hard going. I asked whether Chancellor Liu had succeeded. Liu Tongyi put his hands to his temple and shook his head. I'd gotten a taste of the extent of Hansi's stubbornness the day before, and instantly felt a kind of professional sympathy towards Liu Tongyi. Therefore, I earnestly asked him to stay to eat and catch his breath before he left. Liu Tongyi tactfully refused. He seemed to be in a hurry to get out of the home and go straight to sleep to recover his strength, so I didn't insist. Okay. We're gonna end it there, because, we're probably gearing up for a whole other arc, or whatever. But, alright. So next time... Oh, that's much more manageable. Okay. Yes. Okay. Let me see. So we're gonna end it there for tonight, because I'm really tired. 214 is chapter... Okay. Math. Right? You love him? Didn't you love the other? So much whiplash. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So we'll just read. That's not too bad. Next time. Oh, wait. How many pages? Oh, I'm dumb. I'm almost done. I was looking at the next chapter. Okay, we can actually finish. How many pages? It's 15 more pages. Can I do it? How many? 13. You know what? I'm calling it. I'm tired. That's a fine spot to end it, and then we'll just do chapter 6 and what's left of chapter 5 on Tuesday. And it will be good. We will be fine. I can't read my own bookmarkers. Doy. Oh well. Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to mumble. I can hear myself. Thank you. Get some much deserved rest, and thanks for sticking with it. Yeah, it'll be fine. It will be fine. Yeah. Yes, go rest. Okay. Thanks, guys. Okay. So next time we will do 5.5 through 6. And that will be Tuesday. And then we'll have a couple more sessions. But anyway, I agree with what you said, Peacock Pages. What a bunch of whiplash. We went through the trenches today. Holy moly. A lot happened. Confessions, false identities, a kind of internal confession. So I'm intrigued to see just what mess Hawaii gets into next time, because goodness gracious, boy. Anyway, I wish all of you a very lovely rest of your evening. Both those who are here and who are watching later. And to finish what we didn't and continue. It was good. It was really good. I agree, Chichikiki. And I'm looking forward to it. But now I'm really looking forward to getting the next stream set up and then going to bed. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Good night.